This here's story of a man named Vic Lagina. Some pronounce it Lagina, others say Lagina. Well, let's just call him.
Yes!
Cut!
Well, that's the job, son. So rub some fucking dirt on it and get back in the game.
Trying to shoot the strumpets. Ta-da! It's fucking bullshit.
Filthy!
Oh my god, yes! Give me that magic stick!
How do you get it out of hooker mode?
God, I swear porn is the only business you can't fail at.
What type of fucked up bullshit you got me doing today?
Yeah. Our crew definitely thinks so. But they're kind of shitheads, so they deserve an ass little boss.
Cut! Fuck's sake! Fuck.
These ladies are not hookers!
It's about to get filthy.
What wound up happening was I start shooting the video and her covering herself in oil. And then she kind of puts herself up against like the wall, which you see that big painting back there? That's the wall. Okay. And she goes up against that wall and then starts giggling and then starts sliding down the wall, like really slow. And I'm looking at Male Talent. He's looking at me and we're like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? She was like licking up the water like a dog. And then, took her out and then wound up laying her on the floor of the bathroom, putting a towel over her. Makeup artist had gone. So I call her up right away. I'm like, Jody, you need to come back here because we have a passed out poobah on the floor right now. And so she's like,
look good.
Yeah, I'm like, come back because as you said, two dudes with a passed out porn chick. That's not a good look. So all I could do is just give advice to people. For me, when things were getting heavy, I would take a break and I would go to music festivals and I would do like a lot of hallucinogens. I would do Molly, probably, Coke as well. I mean, there's times where I had about 6 different things swirling around in my system, but the truth is,
Wall Street.
right. But the truth is when I was away from porn and I was at music, that's when, the needle started going back into the positive where I would come back from a music festival. All right, I'm back. Let's go shoot some good fucking porn,
I'm telling you, I'm listening to this shit with a speaker in my room, okay? Everything's chill. And my neighbor is 74 years old, okay? And I'm in my bed, so her bed is across mine on the other side. And then you start hearing, so, put it deep in my mouth. I'm like, oh shit, like so loud there. I was like, man, every time. So I had to watch out. So when the chapter was ending, I knew that you were going to surprise me with something else every fucking time. Bro,
Yeah.
Every time I was shocked by what I was hearing.
And we're not going to do any dumb shit like take mushrooms before you're about to have sex with someone who you've both been mutually interested in. Because after that, she was like, what the fuck? That was such a letdown.
Because I did it with a lot of dudes in my life doing shrooms, but it never deformed one of my friends this much. But girls, why they put makeup is to make up who the fuck they are.
Yep.
So when you're on shrooms and in that world, well, all the makeup really, it's the makeup is something and the human is the other. And then when you put both together on shrooms, it's fucking crazy. You're like, what the hell did you do to your face?
Yep. I should
God.
have just opened a bottle of wine. That would have been
Absolutely, it was the quick way to do
Duh.
it. Can you tell us a bit the story of when your parents visited for the first time and you had to hide everything in one room and they were really realizing like, damn, this is a fucking house. I would have thought as a father, I would have been like, I think he's a drug dealer.
Yeah. No, it's funny. So when I first got into the porn industry, I told my father, this is when I was living in LA, I'm shooting like some porn. He got remarried and she started asking me questions, and I was kind of like, it's not your information to have. Yet here you are asking all these questions. So eventually I cut them off and I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. And they roll in and they're in this rather large estate, which for a dude that had no money, and was in debt, maybe a year and a half ago, things weren't adding up. And then they're walking through the house and they're seeing the different color Willy Wonka furniture everywhere. And they're like, what the fuck? And then there's one room. And of course, she's like, what's in that room? And I go, oh, it's my clients, all of their products. Well, can we see it? I'm like, no, I had to sign NDAs. No one can see it. So they kind of thought I was gay too, because, I was a single dude who had like all these bad relationships, and I'm a single guy. So, they thought maybe I was gay.
And you were living with a dude too at that moment, I think.
I had a house partner.
That's it too.
So how does that sound? A house partner? Like, I was like, you know what? Who gives a fuck? Yeah, I'm a porn director. Yeah, this is what I do. Is Blake helpful? And I'm like, yeah. And I was thinking more like he's the guy that I send out to get sandwiches for the crew, and the cast. That's what I was thinking. I didn't realize they were grooming him to be a producer. Mind you, this fuck never had any experience on a porn set or any set except for observing me. So what happened was, he had this account and he literally would just send these very round invoices in to the company. And he was the one managing it. I go, Blake, listen, you can't bounce a check. You need to know exactly how much is going in, how much is going out. Oh, yeah. No, I got it. And I should have known better. Obviously, I should have known better. Why don't you go down with Kieran and Scott Nails and shoot some Super Trooper type of intro stuff that we could use to maybe mix in, and we at least get the prop card because they were picking it up that day. 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, an hour goes by. I'm like, where the fuck are these guys? And then I hear like sirens and then a car go like right down the street. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I hear a chopper and I'm like, oh my God. And then I have Scott Nails texting me while he's in handcuffs saying, you need to get down here. We're getting arrested.
So, welcome back on the Rumbling Facts podcast, where we dive into uncomfortable truths and challenge the narratives that we've been told and uncover story that others are so afraid to tell. I'm your host, DJ Red Sam. That's DJ with Master Upside Down on all music platforms. We're at 192,000 streams, people. It's quite amazing. Never thought I would get here, so all your support is very appreciated. In the world of adult entertainment, there's always a facade, a polished image shown to the public. But what really goes on behind the scenes of the largest industries in the world? Today, we're peeling back the curtain to stepping into the world few dare to really explore, besides masturbating in front of a fucking screen. Prepare yourself for a conversation of being bold, unapologetic, and unlike stuff that you probably have never heard. Today, we are honored to have a guest who isn't just a veteran in the adult entertainment industry. He helped shape it. With over 20 years as a producer and director of the world's largest adult entertainment company, Brazzers, he's been at the epicenter of one of the most polarizing industries on the planet. He's also the author of the groundbreaking book that I went through in the past few days there, and my goodness, Filter: The Rise and Pending Death of Vic
Lagina.
Okay.
Yep.
This is a no-holds-bar memoir that exposes the bizarre and often hidden truths about his time in the industry. So if this is a podcast for you, take a listen, people. So welcome to the podcast, Vic. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words about the book. I'm glad you consumed it. That's great.
Hey, I was so thrilled, and I never want to do it, listen to it like 14 days ahead. So it's really in the last 3 days I really decked it. And my goodness, there's some parts there I was like, okay, we need to hear this whole part again. I did that at least 20 times. I was like, oh man, there was so much stuff that I never thought stuff like this could happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed the audiobook too, because that was a labor of love once the book was finished and locked and done with my attorneys. Because you understand, I talked a lot of shit in this book, and I had to do it in a way that wouldn't get me sued. So once the lawyers were done, that's when I got to recording. And I had never listened to audiobooks before because I read, but I wanted to make this one my own. And I think I did. I mean, I think you would agree too.
Because me, at least halfway through, I was curious just to see what you look like doing an interview. So I just wanted to check that out. And I was like, oh, okay, the voice I've been hearing since the beginning, it's him. That's what I thought too there. So I'm like, oh, I was so thrilled. I'm so thrilled to have you. Can you take us back a bit to the beginning and what led you to join the adult entertainment industry for people that don't know, and how you landed such a pivotal role in Brazzers?
Yeah, I'm going to take these things out because they're just not working for me.
How did
it all begin? Well, my beginnings are pretty modest. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs to two Jewish liberals. Had a very normal childhood. You know, there wasn't any major dysfunction. There wasn't any kind of trauma. But I grew up loving movies, TV, video games, and that was kind of my passion growing up. But I went to school. I have 2 degrees in production. One not too far from you at Syracuse University. I was there in the early 90s, and I got my Bachelor of Science. And then I went down to Florida because I was tired of freezing my butt off. And,
I understand you.
Yeah. So yeah, I went down to Florida, and I started working in corporate and commercial production as a production assistant. And then I decided to get a second useless degree in film production. And I went to the University of Miami for grad school on a 2-year master's program, while I was becoming an editor, while I was becoming a producer. And the life was great. I mean, I was living in Florida, South Florida. I mean, you can understand, in my early 20s, really just having a good time, but it just wasn't very fulfilling. And when the millennium turned, I went down to Jamaica on a gig for Super Clubs as a producer, and we brought a bunch of models down. And I hooked up with one of them, and things started taking off, and she decided that she was going to go to LA, and she asked me to go. And I thought that was very interesting because you have to take a shot in life. You have to take a swing, because I wanted to make TV shows. I wanted to make movies. And what happened after that was, you know, your typical crash and burn story that happens to most people when they go to LA. I was overqualified for a lot of jobs that were available. And had I humbled myself, the story would have ended a lot differently. You know, if I decided to take a assistant job.
Just relax there.
Right. But I didn't. I was like, no, I'm a producer. I shouldn't, I'm better than this, which is, I mean, that's young ego, you know, but basically, you know, my girlfriend, she was a SAG actress. And she was always on movie sets and doing things like that. And I was, you know, hustling work here and there, but we were struggling, and struggling even further because she decided about 2 years in that she wanted to be a white female rapper. Right. Now, this is early 2002. Okay. Eminem was huge. He just won the Oscar for 8 Mile, and you know, for the song for 8 Mile, for Lose Yourself. And so they were looking for the Feminem. Now, the one tidbit I didn't mention was the day that I moved in with her, she dropped the bombshell that, you know, I have something to tell you. I was like, okay. When I was 8 years old, my father murdered my mother, drowned her in a bathtub.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, so that's a red flag right there, but because that could have been told to me at any given moment before I traveled 3,000 miles across the country to live with her. But I was like, it's not her fault. She can't be blamed for any of that. But she wound up letting that, she felt there was a certain entitlement she deserved in life because of what she went through. And that's not really the right way of looking at things. But so she decided she wanted to be a white female rapper. And I thought, okay, well, she's got the story for sure. She's got the looks. Can she spit on a microphone was the question. And can she challenge all of this angst into a good song? Because that's what really good songs are made of.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was actually competent. She was competent. And I decided to fund her demo on my credit cards in addition to all of my dreams on my credit card. And after a while, it just became unsustainable. And, I was looking for work and I stumbled across this ad on adultstaffing.com where someone was looking for a director for their adult movie. And I'm thinking, okay, how hard can this be?
Exactly.
And I meet up with him and he was a young Mexican kid named Ricardo with a speech impediment, like a stutter. And, I bullshitted him. I basically bullshitted him. I was like, yeah, I could do this. This is easy. And we went down to an agent's office, Jim South. He's no longer alive, but his office was in the Valley and it smelled like cigarette smoke. And he's like sitting there behind his desk with his smoke lit up and he's got Polaroids everywhere of all the girls that he represents. Okay. This is 2002. Polaroids, dude, like really? Like, how about class up a little bit with like a website? But he was old school. And we picked out our girls. And then my first day of shooting was in April of 2002. And that was an interesting day to say the least.
And did you tell yourself right there that, oh, maybe I'm putting myself in a career of 20 years?
I didn't really think it was going to go that far. I never thought it was going to go as far as it did. Let's be real. This was a way to make some quick cash. Maybe one job can lead to another, but I didn't want to make a career of it. But something happened during that day. Not so much just who I shot, because Ron Jeremy was my first day of shooting porn. Which is wild to really think of. Okay. He's got his own story that he has to contend with, right?
Oh, sure.
But I just remember the day just being kind of like, it felt a little sleazy. And I guess it really, the exclamation mark came when someone in the condo that we were shooting in the Valley started smoking crack.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, yeah, that's like, I want to go home and shower. That's really how I felt. So I guess really that was a good starting point, because that was exactly what I didn't want to do when it came to running a business, especially running a porn business. But what happened that day is I met one person who then met another person, and then the jobs kept going and you have this thing starting. So it started blowing up, and, I figured out where to find the leads for content needs for content producers.
How much does skill come into play in the world of porn, music, or actors? Is it more skill or more connection?
In terms of producing?
In terms of growing
the business. Okay. Well,
yeah.
So we were able to hang on in LA for a little bit, but it just became unsustainable. I was selling cameras. I was selling personal items just to stay afloat. And I told my girlfriend, I said, we have to go back to Florida. You have to work. I've got to work. We've got to get ourselves in a better financial situation. And then maybe we can come back to LA and do this again. Great idea on paper, but she just decided, she's going to obsess about her non-existent music career while taking bong rips on her futon because I couldn't afford a couch and I'm working 2 jobs. And, when you work in the corporate world as a freelancer, you work one day, you get paid for that day, maybe 2 months down the road. I mean, that's just the way it was working. But the leads that I was finding in porn, they would place an order, and before I shot one frame of video, I got all the money, like right off the bat. And I remember, like, once the first 10 grand hit, I was like, wow, I've never had so much money in my life. Like, now I think about it, I was like, wow, it's not really, I mean, it's a nice amount of money, but it's not like all the money in the world. But what I wound up doing was buying all the new gear with that money. And the thing before is I never really ran camera, but I realized that if I'm going to do this and I'm going to make money, I got to wear about 3 different hats. So I started shooting with a camera that I owned and just became a better shooter. And the other thing I wound up doing was editing all of everything I shot. I was like an all-in-one service. I would tell people, I'll shoot it. Right. I'll shoot it, I'll edit it, and I'll do everything. But truth is, when you edit your own stuff, you realize what you did wrong when you were shooting. Yeah. So it effectively makes you a better shooter. Now here goes going back to your question, how does it work? Well, in the porn industry, cream rises to the top, especially back then. Apparently, people would take people's money and not deliver anything. On the other hand, if you're going to take money for a job, you deliver. That's just the way it works. So they would tell me what they wanted. I would put it together with whatever local talent was in South Florida, and I would constantly deliver for people. And, word just traveled. That's how it was. And it was about management. It was about managing things.
Since you were a one-man army for a while there, before you were like, let's get a team, was it hard for you to delegate to some people? Because it's so hard to trust people in those businesses.
Not really. I mean, in the early days when I was like in Florida shooting in the seedy hotel rooms and like making next to nothing on these videos, really it was just interacting with talent and working through it and communicating. So I guess if there was one big thing that I learned was communication, just being transparent, being straight up. If you're going to book someone for this and you're going to pay for that, I always felt it was like, let's give all the information you need and make sure everyone is on the same page and they agree, because we do have a job to do. And that line of thinking really served me well throughout my entire career, because people realized that I didn't fuck around. Like, this is what we're going to do. And if you just follow my lead, I'm going to be sure that you're going to get home as early as possible. Because all I wanted to do was get home as well to my dogs. Yeah.
To your dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the reality is that I had this booming business in my hands, and the relationship obviously didn't work out. I became such a bastard to live with because I felt I was living with a leech, and I was drowning, and she was just sitting on my shoulders, pushing me down, like, just not helping out at all, and I just became unbearable to live with. And I think in the first year and a half that we moved back to Florida, I was in $29,000 of debt. In that time, I only knocked it down to about 26. And here's the thing that was interesting that happened. This was 2004, about to be 2005. And I remember that New Year's because I was playing Xbox and I was drinking like $3 Chuck, like cheap wine. And I remember hearing the fireworks going off. And I realized, man, I need to like make this year count. And I was like, I set up a plan the next day. Like, we have $26,000 in debt. Let's knock it out in a year. And I learned how to do that by just making a goal every month, $5,000. We do $5,000, we'll be out of debt by the end of the year. And something interesting happened because my ex was gone and all of her bad energy was gone. The light at the end of the tunnel was no longer a train. It was literally like salvation was there.
Yeah, they're right.
And around that time, I started having more of a relationship with the guys who eventually become Brazzers. And they were ready to level up. Come October, 10 months into this whole journey, I was out of debt. And they said to me, we like what you do. We want to give you more work, but we need you to tap into the LA talent market because South Florida is not really working for us. Because the talent down there was pretty amateurish. Okay. And I was thinking, okay, well, I don't want to live in LA again because it's expensive as hell. It's crowded. It's a lot of bad energy. Yeah. But if I go to Vegas, there's no state income taxes. I can get a huge sprawling house, and I can make it work. And they were good on their word, and they kept me very busy. But I hit the ground running when I got here.
Goddamn right. What was the culture behind the scenes in that company, and was it as wild as people could imagine, like behind the scenes?
No, actually, these guys were pretty cool. They were younger than me. Names. I didn't have any faces to the names that were on the instant messenger I was dealing with. until I really got to Vegas, where they sent down some people, and these people they sent down were younger than me. They were like 5, 6, 7 years younger than me. They were my new bosses, but these guys were like frat bros and stuff from Concordia University in Montreal.
Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, and they knew how to market porn on the internet. So they sent down a couple guys. We went out. We bought a bunch of colorful couches. We bought a doctor's table. We bought all of these like ridiculous, colorful fabrics to put on walls and everything. And, you know, in the very beginning, like I'd say the first month I was here, I was doing everything, picking up the girls at the airport, shooting. You know, we were telling them, just do your own makeup. You know, it was really quick and dirty at that time. But these guys were just like young, ambitious, little like frat bros, and generally like fun guys to be around. But it wasn't wild. I wouldn't call it wild because it was I maintained a professional.
It was still professional, yeah.
It had to be professional. Like when a girl, well, I guess really what it came down to was when I had to start tapping into the LA talent, I had to start making relationships with the agents. And I'm a new guy in Vegas. They're like, who the fuck is Vic Lagina or whatever they wanted to say.
Yeah.
But I was able to get talent out. And the thing that was great was we would shoot 2 scenes in a day. I would shoot 2 scenes in a day. So these girls are flying into Vegas. They're shooting 2 scenes. They're making double their money. And they're back home in less time it would take them to do 1 shoot in Los Angeles. So word started traveling quick. Like there's a dude in LA.
Guy ain't fucking around.
Right. He's good. You'll make double your money. He's cool. He doesn't hit on you. He doesn't do any of that stuff. And just that alone, like got it to the point where it was, you know, elevating. Had to put the work in. I mean, I was shooting, I guess, 8 shoots,
right.
8 shoots a week. You know, Monday was a prep day. Tuesday through Friday were shoot days. Friday night, I'm soaking in my bathtub, you know, just like getting the pain out, you know, because shooting was rough. But that's really from those Florida years and those early Vegas years, that's when I really got good at the job. And I really started finding my footing in the fucked up business that is the porn industry.
A guy at the beginning of your story, Reed, that you trusted. And it's like me when the guy was like, oh no, he didn't want to sign the papers. To let's say something happened, he has his debt too. When he didn't want to sign it, oh man, it made me think like a girl that's gonna get married, and then the guy's like, oh, we're gonna sign a prenup, and then she's all pissed. Well, technically, don't you think this love story is gonna work? Don't you think this business is gonna work? Well, there. And
You're right. You're right. Because like, here's the reality. I could not afford the house. I'm still in the house that I bought back then. This was 2006. And this is when they were giving mortgages away for people that were completely unqualified financially to take them. So I took on this partner, and he was also a content producer. He had his own website, but he showed his colors early, that he was kind of a dark dude. But literally, I'm pulling up stakes leaving South Florida to come to Vegas. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we're doing this whole thing together. My name is solely on the mortgage, but we're both like co-owners of this. We need to put a paper in document form.
Yeah, logically.
And he was like, when did I become the guy that was going to fuck you over? And that's a huge red flag.
Damn okay? Right. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like it has the makings of a disaster. Absolutely. But I just had this gut feeling, this tickling in my plums that was like, you know what? Something about this feels right. We will, at the end of the day, and this is what I always would say is, dude, just bet on yourself. You will get through it. If there's anything that you proved when you were in debt, you got through that. If you get into this house and it doesn't work out, you'll figure out a way to get through it. But once the partnership started fracturing within a couple months and I wound up buying him out, that's when it's real. Okay. That's when it's like, okay, you're on the hamster wheel of porn. You really are. So yeah, it was great because it was booming. I mean, these guys, you know, at first we could only afford, you know, $200 a scene male talent, and you get what you pay for, you know, smaller dicks that can't stay hard. So, you know, you're sitting and waiting. Sometimes you're sitting in the corner holding your camera while he's in the corner and he's beating his meat, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where did I go wrong in life? Like really, to get here. But you know, those were like that was the fun times. It really was. And then they decided, you know, we're going to compete with Naughty America. We're going to do, you know, their whole thing of Naughty Office, but we're going to do it better. And what are we going to incorporate it with? Big titties. And so, you know, thus Big Tits at Work was born.
That's
yeah. And once those first 10 scenes launched, that's when it was like, okay, what do you need? And the first answer was, we need better dicks. And, you know, I was able to start throwing money at the male talent, which goes to show you male talent is one of the most important things when you have high quality porn shoot and dollars on the line.
That goes with my next question. Is being a male talent even harder than most people would think?
Yes.
Like I'm sure I asked that to my friend. Bro, I can fuck hot bitches all day. Like, bro, you don't even know. You never try to stay hard with like 6-7 dudes around you with cameras. Okay, are you getting it? You never lived that shit. So.
What really accentuates that is the epilogue of the book. I mean, this was the whole competition of trying to find the next Brazzers male porn star. And if it really shows how hard it is, just read that whole chapter and you'll really get an idea of how hard it is.
That's the last chapter that you're talking about. One of the last one. Yeah.
Yeah. The epilogue.
Man, what I did there, I'm sure nobody did this. I went to get the video, the real video at the same time.
Right.
So I was letting you go and I stopped you and I listened to, I was watching what you were talking about. And right when I saw I was too far, stopped, re-listened to you the whole time. So I was really seeing the whole thing that you were talking about. And my goodness, you got good memory for details and everything. It was crazy.
Well, I still have all the footage, so I did watch it again. And
for sure.
But I'll tell you, I was thrust back. It was like going into a time machine of that exact moment, and all the memories came back and all the crazy shit that was going down during all of those shoots. You realize, okay, this was crazy. This was people management, but not in your normal kind of way. So to answer your question, being a male talent, one of the hardest jobs in there in the industry. A performer, a female performer, a little bit of lube, a little bit of spit, they're fine, but a guy's got to be like this, especially if they're coming to work for me and they're going to come work for Brazzers.
Yeah, I saw what Angelina was doing. Oh my God, just berating them the whole time, like about their pubes, that he wasn't hard enough and stuff like that. Man, I in my head, I was like, let's say I would be like 90% hard right there. And since I'm not at my 100, and she would start telling me this shit right in front of me and acting like a bitch, a bit, man, me too. I would have trouble getting to my 100%. But I think that was the goal. The blowjob thingy was really to put them insecure and uncomfortable and see if he could still do it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Because you have no idea what the what environment you're going to be in when you're shooting, what the temperature is going to be, whether or not the girl is going to be warm and welcoming or cold and just there to do her job. Mm-hmm. And either way, you have to figure it out if you're going to call yourself a male porn star.
Mm-hmm. Every girl was putting in the face of every guy that was there that was talking so much shit before there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, these girls were champs.
Yeah.
It was so incredible. And well, I understand why you trust Julianne to really have control of this controlled chaos, I would call it there for the whole show. I really took the time to listen and watch the production, and not only the penis entering there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that was secondary. Honestly, the shit show that show was really the spectacle. Like, I sat there watching, like I had so many options on the screen to choose. And I'm like, I don't even know what to show. Let's go split screen because it's just so good. And the way it was set up, most of the dudes didn't even get out of that front room, to move on to the next level. And then the next level after that.
And
You
these
know,
girls were beautiful there. I was like, okay, damn, the pressure that they're putting in that first room there is to really scat out the not good guys there.
yeah, and oh, did we? You know,
Oh yeah, goddamn right.
and
And the guy arrives with some food on his tank top. It's like, what the fuck, bro? You're supposed to be at your cleanest.
it was like I don't know. It was so crazy. Like I really had to go back to that one because I look back at the craziest shit I did, and I've seen some crazy shit, and I was involved in some crazy shoots, but that one takes the cake. That had its own chapter unto itself.
You describe your life a bit in the industry as bizarre. Can you share a story from that time that captures the essence of that experience?
Well, I mean, what kind of job do you go in every day where you're literally sitting straight face and talking? It's like, okay, so first thing I want you to do is I want you to suck his dick, and I want it to be like a really strong blowjob. Perhaps we're going to hang your head over a little bit. You're having these conversations, and they're like, yeah, okay. Any other job, you're like, yo, I'm going to go talk to HR. You can't talk to me like that. But that's how it was. You're just very direct. And I would say that was probably the most awkward and bizarre thing, because anyone who would listen to a typical conversation that you would have on set would just be like, I can't believe I'm actually hearing this, but that was normal. And that's what I normalized every day for a good 16, 17 years. That was my life. So, you know, the amount of things that I normalized, that's why it was really bizarre. I'd also say too, relationships or any kind of relationships within the industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are the ones that are, you're like, yeah, this is not normal. This is not like a normal energy that you would have with anything else.
Yeah, and I went to see your Twitter and the old post there, and 2020 is probably some of the last times maybe you were producing, and you showed just the notes of today, and there was the girl and you wrote like this is the notes we got to deal with so she don't forget her lines. Oh my goodness, or what to do, and it was like blow job, like get on the desk.
yeah, because
like, this is the life.
Sometimes, you know, you would have a performer that's like reading the script and they're really getting it down and they're rehearsing and they want to do a good job. And you have other ones that don't give a fuck about the script and all they're doing is on their phone and they can't remember shit because they're all about themselves. So yeah, the dry erase board, holding it up with the PA, that was what we had to do with some girls. And at that point, it was automatic for me. I knew who was going to be responsible and who was going to need a lot of help to get through it. Yeah.
What percentage of talents really do anal? Because they show on TV like it's probably all of them, but obviously that's not the case there.
Yeah, I mean, let's call it 50%, you know, at least when I was in it. And, you know, it was very rare to see someone go straight to anal off the bat. You know, if there was a girl who was really, really pretty and you know, they're willing to have sex on camera, a lot of times it would start as girl, and then eventually they would put out the offer, hey, I'm thinking about doing my first boy girl, and then they would get a lot of offers, like money offers, and it was very smart for them to do it that way. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you do boy girl, and then maybe you do boy girl, and then, you know, when things are starting to get a little slow, maybe I'm going to do anal. But the thing is that I really didn't like shooting girls who didn't actually enjoy anal, because when you have someone who doesn't want to do it and they're just doing it for the paycheck, it's not an easy day by any stretch. Yeah, like
the passion's not going to show on television.
Right. Or even that scene that wasn't released in the book, in the chapter in the book, the scene that they deemed non-compliant with Angelina Valentine, right? She didn't like doing anal, yet here she was doing a DP.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, a little bit of mentally unbalanced, I think you should say at a certain point. So yeah, that was porn at its worst, when you had the good, the bad, and the ugly just socking it out and trying to see, you know, do you have a viable product at the end of it?
What inspired you to be like, okay, I'm gonna finally write this book, and what was difficult about it?
So the entire process was 8.5 years. It started when I want to say it was in 2015. And at that point, I had been, in Vegas about 9 years. And I really felt that I needed to put all of these memories, all of these thoughts, all of these processes into a tangible form. So what I wound up doing was writing everything up until that point. So from birth until March of 2015, I wrote every day, and in about a month, I had, just a start. And then, I'm figuring, okay, maybe I'll try to do something with this. But the truth was, my story was not over yet. So what would wind up happening was every time we would shut down because there was either, maybe the syphilis outbreak, or if there was an HIV positive test and we had to shut down, I would then go back to the manuscript and update, and I would add more and more and more. And that kept happening until COVID, when we had the really, really big, long shutdown. But that's when I was done with Brazzers, and my story was wrapping up, and so was theirs, really. So all in all, the whole writing process of like the journey of writing, that took 7.5 years, with the last year of it being getting it as tight as possible so it's a good read, so that someone who's going to go through it, they're not going to be bored by any of it. And that's why it was an 8.5 year process, that because I wanted a good product.
Well, I'm telling you, I couldn't get bored. I had trouble going to sleep last night. I was like, how much do I leave for this morning to finish it? And I couldn't leave much. I was like, there was an hour and a half left this morning. I was like, okay, let's go through it.
Yeah.
You had so many stories like in that book that I could relate to there. My goodness, like I've been through a lot of shit too. And there's this part that you're talking about, you're two dudes with a naked porn star that's going crazy, and she's at your place, and you're like in the story, you're like, oh damn, this is where great stories come from, like rape stories, because goddamn, we're in a bad situation, like two guys with a naked porn star. This is not a good.
Yeah. So what happened was, this performer was out in Vegas for 2 days, and she was a little bit of a handful, but we got done three. I think we got we actually didn't get one shoot done because the male talent was failing. So on the last shoot, it was a boy-girl anal with one of those $200 a scene mopes. That's not really the strongest of performers, and it was back then. It was all just baby oil, tits, ass, baby oil, and doing all that. Well, what wound up happening was, I start shooting the video and her covering herself in oil. And then she kind of puts herself up against like the wall, which you see that big painting back there? That's the wall. Okay. And she goes up against that wall and then starts giggling and then starts sliding down the wall, like really slow. And I'm looking at male talent. He's looking at me, and we're like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? And then she's like on the ground, and I cut. I'm like, dude, like what is going on? And he was in the military. So he's like, all right. So he picked her up, took her right to the shower. And right away, I'm not watching any of this, but I hear her when the water hits her. She she makes a noise. And then later he tells me she was like licking up the water, like a dog. And then, took her out and then wound up laying her on the floor of the bathroom, putting a towel over her. And I'm looking at him. And at that point, my makeup artist had gone. So I call her up right away. I'm like, Jody, you need to come back here because we have a passed out poobah on the floor right now. And so she's like,
look good.
I'm like, come back, because as you said, two dudes with a passed out porn chick, that's not a good look. No. And so the other phone call I made was to her agent, and I go, your talent just passed out at my house. What do you want me to do? And he's like, is she breathing? And I go, yeah. Is she turning blue? I go, no. okay, all right, well, keep an eye on her. I'm sure you don't want a paramedic and an ambulance coming to your house. And I'm thinking, my neighbors already were suspects, like totally suspecting me of all sorts of shit. The last thing they need to see is a oiled up porn chick being wheeled on a gurney into the back of an ambulance. So I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I don't want to have an ambulance here. So I will keep an eye on it. He's like, okay, keep me posted. Like, so like nonchalant about it. Like, he's not worried that one of his talent is passed out because she overdosed on something. Mm-hmm. We all deduced that it was GHB she took, and she just took too much of it, and she went into a G hole. And after that, I enacted a very strict drug and alcohol policy that, for the most part, people adhered to. But I just had to lay down the law, like, none of this shit, because I'm not dealing with this again.
And at a certain point that she's doing like fucked up stuff, you and your friend are like in another room looking at her like, what the fuck is going on?
No, I wound up ordering dinner for my makeup artist for the male talent, and we just were keeping an eye on her. We would check in on her, still sleeping, still has the blanket over her. Wow. And then eventually I'm like, okay, we got to get this bitch out of here. And,
for sure.
And Jody goes up to her. He's like, honey, if you get up now, you won't miss your flight. And like a kid who is about to, like miss the school bus, she pops up and she gets her stuff, and she, Jody wheels her greasy ass to the airport, and off she goes and becomes Southwest problem after that.
Like me, at a certain point, I had a girl come over at my place, and I was living with one of my friends, and she at a certain point, my friend leaves, and she's like, "Oh, I think we could go in your room." I'm like, "Sure." So we go in my room, we have sex, and when we hear my colic arrive, we go back in the living room. So we smoking oil in a bottle. And she's like, "Oh, can I have a puff?" I'm like, "Sure." When's the last time you smoked? She's like, 4 years ago. I'm like, "Goddamn!" So I do her the smallest puff ever. Listen. So there was like this much smoke in the bottle, and she takes it. She started coughing and everything, and she was talking the whole time before. And now I'm telling you, silence, and we're sitting on the same couch. Me and her, it's a one spot a person, but we're stuck one beside another. And my colic's right beside me, and I'm telling you, she scared me to death there. Out of nowhere, she yells like somebody's abusing her, and at the same time that she starts yelling, she grabs my leg at the same time. But it scared me to hell. I jumped up and backed up, and she was like, why are you doing this to me? And I'm like, careful, you're gonna drop your phone. She's like, my phone. And she smashed on the ground. I don't give a shit. And I was like, man, my friend like took his sink toke off. We're in the kitchen looking at this shit, and I swear to God, okay, she's walking back and forth left and right and doing like a fake trombone, like. And we could not believe this shit. And after like 30 minutes of this fucked up shit there, she goes to the bathroom at a certain point, comes out and acting like a child, like literally fucked up. And now it's like 11:30, maybe midnight. And his girlfriend and my fuck friend are going to come back from the bar. And we're like, oh, goddamn, this does not look good. We look like we abused the girl, because literally she came in talk right now. She talks like an infant. It's so fucked up. So we're like, oh man. So at a certain point when she was passing out on the couch, we're like, man, let's put her in her car and bring her somewhere safe and just leave the car there. Like we ain't dealing with this anymore. And that's what we did. So we dropped her off like 500 feet from my place. But at least she wasn't at our place. And then our girls arrived, and like nothing happened. And the next day, she forgot her phone at my place. So it's 8-something a.m. Bang, bang, bang at the door. I opened the door. She's like, I forgot my phone. So she just comes in, picks up the phone, and leaves. And everybody just watches her. And then the two girls are like, who the fuck is that? We're like, okay, let's say the story. Calm down.
Yeah, don't you hate it when
it made me think so much of your story? My God.
Yeah, don't you hate it when people can't hold their shit?
God damn it.
Like handle your shit, man, and we won't have a problem. But yeah,
I've never seen somebody scream like to death like that, and nothing was happening. Like nothing. Yeah. I was looking at her like I never knew this person, and I knew her for 15 years, and right then and there, no.
Yeah. Yep.
What does the pending death in your book title mean? Like a lot of people would have put that. Is it about the industry as a whole, or more your personal?
Well, I think there's it's layered. The truth is we're all pending death. Let's be real about that. So that's part of it. But here's reality. Vic Lagina he was created. He's a creation to shoot porn. You know, I conjured him up out of thin air, and he was the one who was running the show.
How long did it take to find that name?
It wasn't that long, and my buddy, the senator, he helped me out with it. The senator is very gifted about coming up with creative things that have no use in any facet of life. So I made the one thing work that he came up with. But for me, in the early part of my career, I thought that the porn industry was run by the mafia. So I felt like I needed an Italian name, you know, so people wouldn't fuck with me. But, you know, Vic was not enough. So he's like, yeah, you should have, your last name should be Lagina. And I'm like, yeah, it was like the Boogie Nights moment, you know, where Dirk Diggler lights up and it's like this big thing. It was like Vic Lagina. I'm like, perfect. Because to me, porn is one of those areas that you should not take seriously at all. So I felt my name had to reflect that. And the best was when people really didn't get the joke. You know, they're saying Lagina, Lagina, you know, they're not putting it together. And so many people over the years would be like, dude, I just got your name. I'm like, it fucking took you long enough, man. What's going on with you?
I think it's because they know how it's gonna sound. That was for me. I think they know how it's gonna sound before they say it. So before they say it, they're like, "That can't be right." They try to find a way to say it.
Yeah, and I like watching people struggle with it. I'm like, no, say it right. Like I go on Jasmine St. Clair's podcast all the time, and she's saying Lagina all the time. I'm like, Jasmine, you're getting it wrong, but it's okay.
So what were you realizing about getting dates there, that most of the girls like that weren't in porn weren't going to take you seriously, and the girls in porn, like, you couldn't really take them seriously? So you were seeing, like, even with the money and everything, you can acquire them, but really have one to stay? Man, it was even more complicated.
So the reality is that when I first got to Vegas, you know, of course, there's going to be hookups here and there. And, you know, they can be fun and everything else, but I didn't really find a lot in common with people within the industry. And so I would try to date in the traditional ways, go on Match.com. And what would find is that while people were intrigued about my job and they were curious, they treated me more like I was a novelty. And they realized, yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to handle it, which is totally fair. Even though I wasn't a performer, being around women who have sex all day, it's not going to sit right with a woman with a good head on her shoulders. I mean, let's be real. So because, you know, I wanted a companion, that is when you start making concessions. And when you start making concessions in a relationship, that's when things go very, very bad. And so that's when I, you know, got engaged to a performer who was, I'm not even going to call her a performer. It was a very damaged woman who entered porn at 19 years old and was in it for 6 weeks. And we hit it off when I was shooting her in Florida. And I decided it was a great idea to have her come out and live with me in Vegas. And that was the one relationship that you compare, and it molds and shapes your future relationships. Everything bad, everything toxic. I mean, I was the king of toxic relationships. You know, I start with, you know, the cokehead surgeon from Florida. She was the first one. That was the year, and that was not a healthy relationship. A lot of yelling and a lot of fighting. And then I trade her in for the white female rapper, and that's a 4-year relationship that is not good at all. And so I was single for a while and just kind of being, you know, a little bit of a player in the industry. And then I was like, you know, I guess if I'm going to be taking on this life, there are concessions that I need to make. And so I was in that line of thinking. And you know, that scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, he chose Holy, yeah, that was me. And so I was engaged to this horrible beast of a woman for I was with her for 2.5 years, but it was a long engagement deliberately because I knew there was no chance in hell this was going to work. And I was right. And once that ended, that was when I was like, I am not going to be dealing with high level of toxicity in my relationships ever again. And I stuck with it. I'm not going to tell you the relationship after that. She was a performer and then she was a stripper. That was, compared to the other ones, that was a good relationship, but it was unhealthy for both of us for a lot of reasons. But that was when you start going into part 2 of the book, when darkness washed over the dude. Mm-hmm. And that's where, things, the business, everything started to really affect me in a negative way.
For somebody that had a lot of women, what is a perfect pussy, you think?
I mean, one that, doesn't feel like a hot dog getting thrown down a hallway, something like it's not so much that, it's just, how does it feel? How does it look? How's the chemistry? And most importantly, how's the hygiene? If you could tell that there was one topic I was passionate about was, hygiene, because
very important.
Yeah, but a lot of it escaped a lot of women in the porn industry. A lot of them.
In real life too, I realized a lot of girls when I tell them, and this is how you tell a girl that her pussy stinks. I'm like, did you know that? Did you ever check your pH levels? Like, no, what is that? I'm like, well, your pH levels, and then you describe that, and you're like, that's why you taste a bit just stronger than others. And like that, I think it passes quite well. Every girl that I said it to, it went well. But the girls on the one night, no, for sure, you can't tell them. You just put your head down and deal with it.
Yeah, you smell the hair, you smell your pillow, you smell anything that you possibly can to get through it. But you know what? You should write a book, I think, about, how to tell a woman her pussy smells tactfully.
So there was one girl that you said in the story that it stinks so much that the whole studio started smelling to the highest. I can't even imagine how the people that worked that day went through that shit.
No, man. I mean, I felt bad for Jordy, the male talent, because she was sitting on his face. And the other co-star, I mean, she literally texted me the day later. She's like, when I opened up my suitcase, I could still smell her. And we would walk into the soundstage, and it was not a small room. It was very, very big. And you're like, oh, what is wrong with you, you turbo hooker? Don't you know that that's not supposed to smell that way? How do you not smell that? That's
what I tell myself every time. I'm like, I don't even understand when she's getting dressed, that person, the smell goes up. I don't get, they don't smell it themselves. Like you said in the book, they're like, what? They have antibiotics to not smell that shit? What? Yeah,
like immunity to it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's actually kind of funny. The other day I had my septic tank pumped, and I was talking to the guys. I'm like, so do you get used to the smell? They're like, yeah, we barely even smell it anymore. I'm assuming it's the same way with a woman who has a septic tank between her legs. Yeah.
I think you have a great point right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you feel like you're best when your back is against the wall and you have a deadline there?
Well, I look at it like this, when the housing market in Vegas dropped significantly and the house that I paid a lot of money for was underwater, you kind of really need to work and be at your best in order to stay afloat and to survive. So when the heat is up, that's when you have to perform. I mean, all of these live shows that we did over, all those years of 5-6 year period, I must have shot 50 live shows that were full on gangbang orgies and chaos, and starting at a certain time and ending at a certain time. It's chaos. It's a chaos manager. I mean, your feet are in the fire, so you better be able to dance in order to get through it. So yeah, that was really it. It was basically sink or swim. So
I find it incredible in the book that we really hear like how you do a whole day, like almost there, with all the details of what you need to tell the people and everything. It really makes us understand that it's not just you're sitting on a bench, action.
Right.
It's not only that. There's so much that comes into play, so I can't even imagine when it's live too. At the same time, it's even cranked to the highest degree.
I mean, think about it. A live double penetration live. I mean, a lot can go wrong when you're dealing
Got that right.
with the anus. I mean, let's be real. So you have to know how to shoot it and know when to cut away, so you're not seeing a girl shit all over someone's dick, because you don't want them to look bad. So they need to trust you that you're not going to make them look bad. And so you're kind of shooting, their face while you're looking to see if there's any, chili dog action going. But that was really managing all that stuff. And I don't know, that was what I was good at. I think about it now. There's no way in hell. Like, I look at myself like, how the fuck did you do this for so long? And we're so efficient at doing it. And I mean, I know it was money, and I'm sure cocaine had a big part of it, because I was a very good worker when I was yacked up on coke. But the truth is, you figure it out if you're a good producer.
You've been sober for how long now?
Well, sober is a relative term. I've been off cocaine for years now.
Well, that's what I meant there.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you that if a buddy of mine who I know has tested stuff, like the guy who I deal with sometimes, he's got a spectrometer that he analyzes the cocaine he gets from the cartel. Okay. And it has analysis of it.
Yeah.
So guaranteed no fentanyl. And even then, so if I see him and we're into music, he gives me a bump, I'm like, I'll absolutely do that. But where I was, no, man, it's been literally, I guess close to 5 years since I've been really, using it or abusing it, I should say.
Me, it's been 10 years. I was on a free base for 2 years straight there every day, like $1,000 a day.
Wow.
It was fucking crazy because we became rich and poor in 2 years there. We gained to $256,000 and we just drained it to the bottom. It was fucking incredible. And when he left, I had like 40,000 left, and for me, I felt like he was betraying me, leaving me in my own addiction. And when you think I would have slowed down, no, I cranked it to the highest degree. I would just wanted to evade my problems. And somebody came and got me and didn't take no for an answer. It's like, oh, you're moving into my place. And if it would have been for him, I don't know where I'd be. That's why I did a song that's called a Free Bass Symphony. And it really explains my whole addiction, the story, and how much of I call it a ghost train, this addiction, because you can't control it. It's just fucking pulling you, and you just see lights going, and you're just trying to grab something. The dreaded cocaine train. I mean, I knew it well. Like, for me, I never did the freebasing. It was just snorting up my nose. But what happens is, eventually your nose won't allow anymore. Yeah. And so you've got to stop because your nose is bleeding. It's jacked. So you stop. And then you're like, I'm okay. And then maybe like the 3-week mark, you're like, I could use a little bag here. And then you buy it. And then like that bag leads to another bag and another bag. But the truth was, I mean, okay, yeah, it's fuel for work. No doubt. You can be very productive when you've got a long shoot day by blowing rails. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely.
But the truth is there was something much deeper going on there. Not so much with me, but more of the surroundings around me. That was the porn industry. Because then I really understood it when I wrote the book, and I talked about the people who died and how they died, and reading their obituaries and realizing how much pain they were in. And, I was absorbing a lot of that pain. I know I was, because, you're around it all the time. You're definitely going to get affected by it. So for me, you do some cocaine, you don't feel it anymore. You're numb. So that's really where it all came from. But I did find that when I started writing the book, and I was like recapping the shit show that was like the last, 12 years of my life, that's when I realized, okay, dude, I think you need to start making some better life choices. You need to start slowing your roll a little bit, because, a lot of porn stories don't have a happy ending, and I didn't want to be one of those guys. And I didn't want to end up that way. I really didn't. It was one of those deals where if COVID didn't happen and I continued in the industry, I don't know if I would still be here, because, you know, you get one bad batch of Coke and it's over.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, you weren't there, but a lot of people are on oxycodone, Xanax, and Percocets. Like Juice World died because of this shit. Little Peep, Mac Miller, these big celebrities that could get help because they got the money for it. But no, the addiction is so strong and they so want to get rid of their trauma.
Yep.
It's unimaginable. I really appreciated in your book that you took the time to really talk about the stories of these people that passed away, and I was shocked by the age of most of them. Like, my goodness, like how many people do you think around you, like that you met or spent some time with, that passed away like before their 50s? There's probably so many.
It was all of them that I wrote in the book. I think there was like 8 or 9 that I wrote in the book. But
crazy.
But I mean, even then, even earlier this year, Cagney Lynn Carter, you know, she put a shotgun in her mouth and she ended it. You know, that was, she was what, 35, I think was what it was. And there's the problem with the porn industry now is they seem to have a particular chain of events that happen when someone dies. There's an AVN press release, an XBiz press release, and they get quotes from people who knew them. And they talk about how wonderful that person was and all these great memories they have. And they make the article about them and about, oh, I remember this or I remember that. But what they're not talking about is the pain that these people are in, and worrying about the support that people need once they leave the porn industry, or if they're not as successful in the porn industry, or if they're just getting older and they're aging out. And I put people on blast for that, because to be honest, I think that's a real shitty way of talking about someone when you're just talking about all these fake, glowy bullshit aspects of it. I mean, no, like for me, the most controversial thing in my book is I was talking very honestly about people who are dead. And some people can think that as being disrespectful, but I thought, no, that's actually the human element of it, unfiltered. You're not making a puff piece out of it. So I hope they get their shit together in the porn industry, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith.
A lot of people, like when they want to take their life or erase themselves, it's like they just want to stop pain. Like my cousin 3 weeks ago, and he shot from underneath here. And when you think that would take anybody out, and when my cousin told me this story, I'm like, so he's dead? He's like, no, he survived. I'm like, how the fuck did he survive? He's like, well, you know, they say in movies, don't put the gun in a humid place. Well, the gun was in a humid place for years and years and years. So when he used it, instead of doing the big pow that a gun would do after the bullet hit something, well, it just did like a hit, like if he got hit in the face with a fucking bat of baseball. So it passed through here, it exploded his tongue, and it didn't go through after the nose. So it stopped somewhere here inside his head. He got operated 2 weeks and a half later. He's living with some friends now, and he was in debt. We didn't even know he was in debt at his old apartment, rents due and stuff. He left everything there, like 8 guitars, full of Xbox, like all his life. He just left it behind, not give a fuck, because he was in addiction and depression and all that combined. And when my cousin told me this, I'm like, man, imagine this dude now, our cousin there. He's like, he's in a worse spot than he was before. Like, what the fuck? So now he has trouble talking and everything. Yeah. It's so sad. Like a lot of people are going through drama and don't go seek out help or go seek out medical. We need to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I can't imagine getting to the point of wanting to end it, because I really enjoy life. I love waking up every day. I love wondering what's going to happen next. So I treat everything. Every day is going to be my last day, so I can make it be the best day possible. That's really it. So I really feel for people who feel that is the only option for them.
Mm-hmm. Like you said in your book, it's really the support system, because if you have a support system, like somebody is going to convince you to talk about it. Somebody is going to be there for you. It's like, but what I saw with Juice World, because I really looked into him, it's like everybody around him knew that this train was going to go down. But instead of just stopping this train and derailing him, I don't know, they were just beside him and picking up the bills. It's like, what the fuck? But most people are going to do that when there's so much light on you. And I'm sure in the porn industry, that's so like competitive. Like you just hope that the other one's going to drown, so you go over him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, I think the difference is, you know, I was a producer and a director, but a lot of people who are performers, I noticed a similar, almost psychological profile between performers and actors and musicians. And the common thread there is like the need for adulation, to be in front of the camera, to be in the spotlight. So I suppose, you know, once a porn career starts ending and they no longer have that, what else is there for them? I mean, that's the way I can interpret it. And it's quite sad. I mean, you know, I tried to figure out, okay, I knew that porn was going to end for me at some point in time.
Yeah. The whole time in your book, we feel that you know that this can't last forever.
Right. It can't. and you know what my biggest fear was? Whatever I do next is not going to be as interesting. That was it. That was my only fear. But who cares? Like, I don't even care about that anymore. Like, I just love just waking up every day, hanging with my dogs, hanging with my girlfriend, reading books, getting better at the piano, and just enjoying this life. Whatever it is, simulation, life, however you want to talk about it. Yeah, I'm really fortunate in that regard.
So you were an expert at the pop shot. So explain to us how you almost didn't fuck one up your whole career.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I never missed one. Sometimes I had other shooters working for me that missed it. And, you know, you can't fake that very well, because you could try mixtures of different things and you could try maybe squirting it from a squirt gun, but it's a fugazi. It's not real. Yeah. So, you know, you just have to be sure that you're on point and ready to go, because that is the most important shot in porn. Whether, and where it goes, that is up for debate. I can tell you the most popular was always the facial. This is what the people wanted to see. You can interpret that, the whys of that, any way you want. And then the cream pies, which cream pies were tricky because they need to know, the performer needs to know that they cannot be fully inside, because the part of the cream pie that makes the shot so special is the cum dripping out. Yeah. And if you're all the way up there, it's not going to drip out. And plus you need to have a guy who's quite voluminous in their pop shot, so you would actually see it come out. So that was usually it. I just kind of thought that when they had me do pops on the boobs or the butt or the feet, I was like, boo. I know the members are going to be pissed about that, but apparently some people just don't like facials either. I don't know.
Oh, it's like there's some people with the foot fetish. You never know what kind of clients that you have. Yeah. What's one of the craziest last minute crises that you had to fix on set, and how did you pull it off?
Okay, yeah, I talk about this in the book. I think the greatest feat that I ever accomplished was getting 2 shoots done when both of my male talent for the day in 2 separate scenes got arrested, because I was having them. All right, let me back up. Yeah. The day before, we're shooting a scene. I know Genevieve Jolie was in it, and we rented a legitimate cop car that, you know, they told us, don't take it out on the road. And I remember this thing costing like $3 to $4 grand to rent. This was when they had money and they were spending it. They didn't really care. But I remember watching the footage, and I didn't direct the scene, that all you see in the video is like one shot of the cop car going by. And I'm like, they're going to get pissed off at me because this high production cost item is not in it. So I told him, I go, Huggy, he was my director, kind of a piece of shit asshole. I told him, I said, why don't you go down with Kieran and Scott Nails and shoot some Super Trooper type of intro stuff that we could use to maybe mix in, and we at least get the prop car, because they were picking it up that day. So I go, just go right down the street. So, 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, an hour goes by. I'm like, where the fuck are these guys? And then I hear like sirens and then a car go like right down the street. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I hear a chopper and I'm like, oh my God. And then I have Scott Nails texting me while he's in handcuffs saying, you need to get down here. We're getting arrested. Now, I'm thinking if I go down there, I'm going to get arrested too. And then we're all fucked. So they're getting arrested. And I've got one girl going to a comic book store to shoot a scene, but she has no guy to fuck her. And then I've got 3 girls coming out of makeup for a shoot that is at the house that no guy to fuck her either. And I'm like, what do you do? What a predicament. Well, it turns out that Scott Nails had an outstanding traffic ticket in Boulder City, which was about 20 miles away. And so he gets sent to Boulder City while Kieran and Huggy get booked downtown to Metro. And the reason why they got arrested was because someone called an officer in distress, right? And then they towed that car because that car was not registered as a prop cop vehicle, which is why they were like, we don't want you taking it out on the road. So it was actually good that Scott was arrested for that in Boulder City because I texted him. He's like, look, all I have to do is pay it. They're going to bounce me. So I go and pick him up. I'm expecting him to be pissed off at me. And he's like, I'm not mad. He's like, I'm mad that I'm not going to be making my money today. I go, well, can you do 2 pops in a day? He's like, yeah. He's like, just give me about, 45-minute nap. I'm like, great. So I drop him off. He knocks out one scene. And then I drop him off at the comic book store. He knocks out the other scene. And then I go and I get Kieran and Huggy out of jail, or I wait for them to get released. And they got released with no charges because being stupid is not a crime. They just wanted to hold them because they were inconvenienced because they sent the cavalry and a chopper on this call.
Oh my God, the chopper for this, like they were spending a lot. Just like, I don't know what they were thinking. Like really somebody that was like maybe impersonating a cop. Maybe that's what I would have thought initially that they would have thought.
Well, what they did was Kieran was in a cop uniform, and then you got Scott Nails, who kind of looks like a criminal with all his tattoos. And, what they were shooting was, like Scott, like overtaking him and cuffing him and then driving the car away, like doing like stupid shit like that. But someone seeing it, they're like, oh my God, officer in distress. And it was bad.
People are not with the live and let live.
Yeah.
Like, apparently. I want to be a hero today. This cop is going through something.
Yeah. But it made for a good story that I definitely wanted to include in the book. But that was the biggest challenge for sure.
How do you measure your success for a shoot or a project? Was it just about the numbers, or were there other benchmarks that you were aiming for? You feel success in your heart for a scene or something like that?
Well, I mean, it was kind of interesting because sometimes there would be a scene that I thought was crap, that there wasn't chemistry between the girl and the guy, or it just didn't rub well with me. It didn't sit well with me. But it wound up doing really well in the members area on Brazzers. And then there were sometimes scenes that I shot and I was like, wow, that was a great scene. I'm shooting and they're just going. I'm following them fucking. I don't have to cut. They're not asking to cut. We're just getting through it. I'm like, wow, that was a good one. And sometimes that scene just didn't do shit. And you're like, wow, it's the members are really fickle on what they like and don't like. It's to the point where I really couldn't understand what was going to be successful and what wasn't. So how I measured it was if the person showed up and they were happy to be there and the concept was not fucking ridiculous, which became harder and harder to find as time went on. And it was a very easy shoot and everyone was happy and it looked great when I was shooting it. That to me was a good day. That's how I measured the success was how did it go? Would everyone have a great time? And do people want to come back to work?
Can you tell us a bit the story of when your parents visited for the first time and you had to hide everything in one room and they were really realizing like, damn, this is a fucking house. I would have thought as a father, I would have been like, I think he's a drug dealer.
Yeah. No, it's funny. So when I first got into the porn industry, I told my father, this is when I was living in LA and I was starting to do shoots out there. And I told him, I said, I'm shooting like some porn. He goes, look, he's like, I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, it's a legit business. It's legal. You're not doing anything illegal. He's like, but please don't be in the movies. That was his one request. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. That's absolutely fair. But I told him, I said, look, I need you to keep it to yourself. I don't want you to start telling people. Well, he tells his wife, he's not my mother. My mother died when I was 15, but he got remarried, and you know, she's a little bit of a yenta, let's put it that way. But she started asking me questions, and I was kind of like, you know, it's not your information to have, yet here you are asking all these questions. So eventually I cut him off, and I was like, I'm not doing it anymore, but I'm going to move to Vegas and I'm going to buy this house. And they're like, well, what are you doing out there? Well, corporate and commercial production is what I told them. And they roll in, and they're in this rather large estate, which for a dude that had no money, you know, and was in debt, you know, maybe a year and a half ago, things weren't adding up. And then they're walking through the house, and they're seeing the different color Willy Wonka furniture everywhere. And they're like, what the fuck? And then there's one room, and of course, she's like, what's in that room? And I go, oh, it's my clients, all of their products. Well, can we see it? I'm like, no, I had to sign NDAs. No one can see it. So there was like, the whole thing is, the more you lie, the more it's like they want to know more about it. So that's the way it was for a while. And, you know, they kind of thought I was gay too, because, you know, I was a single dude who had like all these bad relationships, and I'm a single guy. So, you know, they thought maybe I was gay.
And you were living with a dude too at that moment, I think.
I had a house partner.
That's it too.
So how does that sound? A house partner? Like, they're like, okay, but it was a closet case, but not the typical kind. He's really a pornographer. He's just not really telling anyone. And my ex-fiance, who is a compulsive liar, wound up telling them at one point that I worked for the CIA. Yeah. So it was like, it just got worse and worse to the point when I got to a point where I was like, you know what? Who gives a fuck? Yeah. I'm a porn director. Yeah. This is what I do. That explains the purple and gold couches everywhere.
The adult industry has evolved so much through the years. What changes shocked you the most during those times?
Well, I guess it was more towards the end of the career, but you have to understand something, that trends shifted constantly over the course of my career.
By trends, you mean like fetishes of people?
What we were focusing on, what was hot at the moment. And they based all of that on what was being searched on Pornhub, because Pornhub was a company asset and people were searching all sorts of things. So when there was something that they wanted more, they're like, okay, we're going to shift gears and we're going to get away from all the big boobs and all the big butts and all of this and that. Now the big trend is squirting. So you had to deal with the squirting scenes, and, you know, you had to sometimes have shoots that were with girls who didn't squirt, and you had to fake it, you know. And how do you fake it? Well, she takes a douche full of water, shoots it up them, and holds it until you are ready to get the squirting shot. But that's how we were doing it. And then, you know, things started shifting a little bit more towards the stepbrother, stepdaughter, stepsister, step whatever. So that's what happened. And then what were the trends later? Then it was really, we had to focus on the ads that were going to be on Pornhub for people that would get people to clickbait, essentially.
And go for paying.
Go to the pay sites. And that was the business model that survived. But I think the biggest change was happening was when we started dealing with younger performers that were born after, say, 1996 or so, and they were raised on iPods and iPhones and social media, and they're not talking anymore, and they are they don't know how to communicate, yet we're asking them to have consensual sex on camera. That to me was the biggest change and the biggest eye-opener, to the point where I was starting to get uncomfortable towards the end of it, where, you know, you would shoot a scene and you think everything was fine because they didn't call cut, they didn't say anything, they did their exit interviews, everything was fine, yet they go on Twitter or they say something to a boyfriend or sometimes sit on something for 2 years and then decide to blast it out.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck? Because
where was this initially?
Well, the thing is they had a compliance department, and they had people looking at the content to flag things that were not compliant. And we had rules of things that we had to adhere to. And if it passed compliance, and now they're saying, no, they had a traumatic experience that none of us knew about, that's when I was like, okay, the goalposts have been shifted. I don't know if this is the business for me anymore, because there's more to lose than there is the gain.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's a woman's responsibility to tell the dude, hey, by the way, I don't take contraception?
Yeah,
in my life too, like sleeping with a girl and she don't say shit the whole time. She puts it in and she's rolling and I come, but I keep going. And she's like, oh, tell me before you come. Like after like 45 minutes of sex, I'm like, well, it already happened once. I'm aiming for the second one now. She's like, oh, you could have told me. I'm like, bro, it's your responsibility. You know, when you take my dick and you put it inside you that I don't have a condom, I'm not doing contraception on my side. So it's for you to fucking tell me right away. But a lot of girls and the porn, I was shocked that a lot of them don't take contraception and they do cream pies. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, you're right. And like whenever I was in my personal life, when it came to that, that would be my first question. Are you on birth control? Because sometimes they're like, yeah, come at me. I'm like, are you on birth control? Because, you know, I don't want to have a kid. And, you know, they would say either yes or I can't have kids was usually the answer. So very dicey.
Would you trust that every time?
No, because you know that's not a foolproof method at all. But yeah, I think if there's a cream pie scene and the girl's not on contraception, then there needs to be some sort of solution there, which there are solutions. It's called Plan B, or there's a lot of things they can do. What I find so interesting now, after the outcome of this election, girls are like, I'm not doing cream pies anymore because now I can't get an abortion. And I'm like, you do realize there's about 5 or 6 other things you can do that will prevent you from getting pregnant, dummy. But that's where we are in porn at the current time.
It's incredible because I wouldn't have thought that the porn movement, the porn would have been hit by the Me Too movement like it did. That's what changed, and that's why millennials were like keeping it in and not saying shit until the product's done, sealed, and gone, and then a year later, a month later, you're like, what the fuck? So that was probably stressing because I know that when I go to clubs or bars with my friends now, a lot of my friends don't even want to go and start talking to a girl in case she says something. Oh, he was and I'm like, God damn, like you gotta live, but we're in a crazy world right now that people are so like snowflakes.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it with the younger generation. They're the ones who really have, again, moved the goalposts. The rules have completely changed. They no longer made sense to me. Like in the real world, I felt, okay, I guess if that's really the way it is, fine. But in porn, come on. Like we're supposed to be adults. We're supposed to be acting like adults in the adult entertainment industry. Yet people are not. It was still 13th grade all the way through.
Mm-hmm. It's like in UFC when they try to do like censor UFC because of how much no censorship and no filter Dana White talks all the time, and they were like, oh, you should put this fighter on a leash. He's like, I ain't putting nobody on a leash. We're in the fight game, lady. So if one of my white guys says racist remarks to the black guy, it's a fight game. What do you expect? It's like, I'm not gonna start telling people to fucking not be allowed to say something if they want to say. We're in the fight game.
Commissioner said that they could start possibly sanctioning fighters for things that they say before fights and lead up to fights, I guess in response to the McGregor and Khabib stuff. Just want to get your thoughts on that. Can they do that?
I think it's crazy. I think it's insane. I think it's unconstitutional, first of all. I don't think you can legally do that. These guys get into a cage and they punch each other in the face. They can knock each other unconscious. They can choke each other, but they can't say mean things to each other. It's pretty ridiculous.
You obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, what they can say when they are up there with the UFC microphone and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia. Like, is there...
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
like...
Free speech. I control what people say. Gonna tell people what to believe. Gonna tell people... I don't fucking tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want.
And I would have thought that it would have been the same in porn, because literally, you could live a day with shit inside your boots the whole day.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And when the whole woke movement was starting to take hold in the porn industry, again, that's when I was like, it doesn't make sense anymore to me. So I think perhaps I aged out. I became the dinosaur that was like, okay, I need to go out to porn pasture, and that was okay. And I was at peace with it. Like, I think there was a good maybe year where I was like harboring a little bit of resentment. But then when I realized, every day was happier and happier and happier because I was away from it, it was like, there's nothing to be angry about here. This thing ran its course, and it's up to now the younger generations to make sense of it all. Because I certainly don't know the rules anymore. They don't make sense.
Do you find monogamy stupid?
No, I did at one point in the porn industry.
Yeah.
Because I tried it. I tried it in my engagement. And I mean, look, this was really more of a her issue and her insecurities, but I was getting blamed for cheating all the time, and I wasn't. And, when you're being monogamous and in my shoes.
And you're seeing hot girls too naked, and you really are monogamous.
Right. And here's the interesting thing. When you are engaged or you're with a partner, they kind of viewed it as like some sick challenge. Like, I wonder if I can get him to fuck me, And so they're laying it on really thick. And I'm like, not doing it. I'm being a good boy. But you're coming home and you're being blamed for cheating all the time. And at that point, you're thinking, well, if I'm going to get blamed for it, I might as well do it. So what happened was, after I broke up with her and I got into my next relationship, that was when, and of course I started doing cocaine. That's when I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. So when she started accusing me, that's when I was like, you know what?
Okay.
I'm gonna just fuck whatever is interested. And so I was. I wish at the time that I had enough sense or wasn't so fucked up on coke where I was like, you know what, this is wrong to do to you. I'm going to break up with you. I didn't do that. I just kind of was a scoundrel, and I could admit it, and I could be honest about it. But after that, when I chose to not be in a relationship anymore, to me, it made sense where monogamy didn't make sense at all. And when I did date a Dutch girl for 9 months, I told her, I said, this has to be an open thing. I was like, because if I have someone who I'm physically attracted to and I am putting in zero effort and they just want to have fun, I'm going to do it. So we had that. I just made a rule, like, don't ask any questions you don't want the answer to, because I'm going to answer them. But now I am in a committed, fully monogamous relationship, and I intend to keep it. Yeah. And I said to her,
incredible.
Yeah, well, you know what?
The book I heard, goddamn, that's incredible. I'm proud of you.
Well, I think the reality was, after being distanced from it for so long, because we linked up earlier this year. I mean, I've known her for years, right? And we tried to get together a few times over the years. We were going to get together during early 2020, but then COVID hit and she's not from here. So it kind of was put on hold for a while. And I tell her, I say, you know, you're getting the best version of me, because I don't think this would have worked out when I was still in porn. And I needed to write the book. I needed to process it. I needed to heal. I needed to become a little more self-aware. And I tell her, I said, I am not going to betray your trust at all. Like, you've got me. So let's make the most of this, and let's be good to each other.
There was this girl that told you that her daughter was yours when actually it wasn't. Like, I can't even imagine that. But what I lived through that I could compare to you is literally one of my child. I got told about the child when he was a year and 3 months.
Yeah.
So the person told me, hey, by the way, like a year and 3/4 away, well, you put me pregnant. I'm sure you didn't want it, so I kept it. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I learned this. I'm on a bender at another girl's place, and I get this text that's fucking paragraphs telling me, oh, you're a father of a second child out of nowhere, and he's already born. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how could these women do this?
Yeah.
So you had this. Is it the same girl that said that Bliss was yours, and the one that said that she had twins and lost both of them? Is that the same person?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So wow.
Yeah. She was named after a succubus. That's where I came up with her name. Now, most of the people in the book, except for a few, their names were changed because my lawyers advised me not easily identifiable. You stick to that, and you're going to take the wind out of most lawsuits. So yeah, that was the ultimate mindfuck. When I tell you this was the relationship that defined other future relationships after that, that's why. And there was like, I'm at the point now where I don't even care what was the truth, what wasn't the truth. Like, I cut the tie quickly. Now, like, once I was done, and no more cease communications. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't keep trying to show up again in either text or phone calls or emails or whatever. I call her.
Find us.
Yeah, well, she's human herpes. She's herpes in the human form, and she will not go away. And the way I look at it is this: that is my penance for choosing poorly in a partner. And now,
and I think you have too good a heart. Because even the guys that screwed you over or didn't do an amazing job like you wanted them to, well, you gave him like not an excuse but another shot. Try to help him out. I think your problem is you had a good heart and not let people down. So I think that fucked you up with relationships and work relationships.
Yeah. I wanted to help people instead of just cutting them loose. Like, in hindsight, in business, I should have just been ruthless, cut, gone, you're out of here. Same thing in relationships as well. Like, trying to do the right thing, trying to be the good guy. Sometimes you have to be the dick, and you have to be like, no, this is the way it's going to go. And you fucked up, you're out of here. But I didn't do that. I wanted to help. So
knowing that porn free was coming at a certain point, full throttle, were people in the industry that was controlling the paid sites freaking out of what was coming?
Well, yeah, but they wasn't where I was because, they were starting to take over the entire industry. They had Pornhub, they had Brazzers, they had all these websites. And then once second ownership took over, they started buying other big companies. So I was under the umbrella, so I was fine. But for people who had their copyrighted work showing up on the porn sites, yeah, they were freaking out. I was okay. I didn't really worry. I was part of the evil empire. But a lot of people, they were successful, and then they started losing everything. And a lot of resentment started to grow against the evil empire that was known as Manwin, and then eventually MindGeek.
What are some of the most common drugs that we see in porn, like of people not in the porn, obviously, but that are people addicted to or have problems with?
I would see opioids. I would see Xanax. That would be like the two main ones, which oddly enough, with a doctor's prescription, are legal.
Yeah, and with enough, you die.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bad. Like, I knew never to get on the opioid train. I knew that because any documentary, anything I saw, you never have a happy ending to an opioid story.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I knew a lot of people who I wouldn't say a lot, but there were girls who took Xanax because, they don't even remember the scenes. Now think about that. Like, that is pretty fucked up.
Fucked by 3 dudes, but never remember it.
Yeah. There's one performer, Haley Young, who I still talk to on occasion, and she's in a good place now. She is, but I would talk to her, and I'm like, "Do you remember like this, and this?" She's like, "I don't remember really anything," and I don't know if that's really the drugs, probably, or if she's selectively, disassociating and forgetting these things.
And what mental health problem did you see that a lot of people have? Like, what was the most common health problem that you would see?
Well, I mean, I think you would see depression, bipolar, manic depressive. I think you would see a lot of that. I don't want to say a lot of it, but for those who wound up taking their lives, I saw cases of that as well.
And what trauma was the most common, you think?
See, they never really got into like exactly what went down at all. Sometimes they would, but generally it was more like you knew that there had something had gone down, but they don't really talk about it. You just kind of see
she has issues.
Yeah, or you see people who like self-harm, self-mutilate. You would see that quite a bit. But yeah, overall, that was like, when I was deciding that I'm just going to hang out with girls in the industry because I was failing at relationships with the civilian world, you have those awkward post-coital conversations, and that's when they reveal themselves. And you're like, yeah, I really don't want to wade into your dark waters. I really don't, but they're there for sure.
The first time that you go on vacation, like in Hawaii, I think, like just chilling, and it's one of the first time that the company's still rolling, but you're not there. And then out of nowhere, I think it's Blake that started make those checks bounce, and you didn't bounce one fucking check since the beginning. Everybody was paid and laid and happy. And him, like, you can't even leave the boat for 2 seconds, and then they can't even steer the ship. What the fuck?
Yeah. So they had this bright idea to send their fraternity brother, whose visa in Canada had expired. So they had to do something with him. So they sent this guy to me, this black dude named Blake. Now, I liked Blake. I know I talked so much shit about him in the book because he was a buffoon. He was an absolute 100% buffoon. But the thing is that with all the things that I had going on and all the shooting going on, the last thing I wanted to do was be manager of a bank account. So they basically used him and put everything under his name. Like he set up the accounts, all the leases were signed. So let's say in all these houses that we were renting, if the cops raided them, it wouldn't fall back on me, it would fall back on him. So for me, he was the ultimate fall guy. But what I didn't realize is they asked me, is Blake helpful? And I'm like, yeah. And I was thinking more like he's the guy that I send out to get sandwiches for the crew, and the cast. That's what I was thinking. I didn't realize they were grooming him to be a producer. Mind you, this fuck never had any experience on a porn set or any set except for observing me. So what happened was, he had this account and he literally would just send these very round invoices in to the company. And he was the one managing it. I go, Blake, listen, you can't bounce a check. You need to know exactly how much is going in, how much is going out. Oh, yeah, no, I got it. And I should have known better. Obviously, I should have known better. But yeah, literally, we shut down production. I go to Hawaii with my soon-to-be fiance, and I start getting calls from agents that checks are bouncing. And I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, and he owned it. He's like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done it. But in the meantime, he was basically telling the company that I was embezzling funds, and that's why it was under. So yeah, it got to the point where it was just, I was always looking at my ass to see how much someone was taking a bite out of it, because you have to understand something. When Pornhub launched and when the business and the economy started tanking, then there was a lot of blood in the waters. And here I am running, 35 shoots a month, and people who are hurting, they want a piece. And it's like you're getting attacked on all angles and you're just trying to fend off. On top of shooting porn, multiple scenes. Like, yeah, it was getting bad for a while.
Oh my god. How much does the non-adult media companies like the tech giants profit from adult industry and while publicly staying distant from it?
So I guess really what we're talking about here is like hotel chains or something that would maybe have the porn on the, I think the reality is that, and I still think it to this day, porn is not a mainstream business, even though the nudniks who are in the younger generation want to refer to studio porn as mainstream porn. There's nothing mainstream about porn at all, because if there was, a performer would not have a problem opening a bank account or have financial discrimination against them or any discrimination if it was mainstream. So when people start saying, oh, I'm not shooting mainstream porn anymore, I'm like, that term makes no fucking sense. But yeah, do they benefit from it? Of course they benefit from it. You know, there's ways of like not getting the stink on you, but feeding the demand of your clients. So I think it was the hotels that were first.
After that girl told you that Bliss was yours there, because she supposedly picked up your hair during the night there, dude, man, right when you said that, I was like, man, I don't trust that bitch no more. I was like, what the fuck? So how long after did you take the test by yourself and to make sure?
That was probably, maybe a month or two. I think there was something that set me off that, because she was so bad that all she wanted to do was sleep, yet she has got like a 3-year-old in this house, like walking around. And she, eventually hired my cleaners to be the nanny of the kid because she just wanted to be in bed. My take is that she was on drugs and she was hiding it very well. She was hiding her addiction, but she said something to me at one point. She's like, you should be hanging out with your daughter. And something in me was like, okay. And then that's when...
Like, why are you trying to implement in my head that is my daughter? I'm like,
Right. So one time when she was gone, I'm like, Bliss, come here. Open up your mouth. Swab, put it in a tube, send it off. And I remember the unmistakable panic in my ex's eyes when I told her that. Yeah, but even like this goes to prove the point of me trying to be a good dude and trying to be committed. Even when I found out that it was 100% certain this kid was not mine, I was like, we're still going to make it through this. And she wound up getting pregnant again and wound up miscarrying again. And I think it was after that miscarriage and after I saw her kid, she, like, her mother was yelling at me and slamming doors, and then the kid was slamming doors. And something in my head was like, okay, like at this point, like it was like the voice of the universe was like, okay, Vic, I can't do anything else for you to tell you that you should not be in this relationship. And once that opened up, I was like, we were all making making all these choices because it would be good for Bliss. But the truth is, none of this is good for Bliss. And I think she needs to be in a more healthy environment, not here because it's very toxic, because me and you are toxic. And I think if we don't improve, you need to go. And there was a matter of months where her daughter wasn't even here. Mm-hmm. She was back home and she's trying to work on me. And I'm like, in our relationship, I'm like, you should, like, how is it not innate in you to want to be a better mother to your daughter? And eventually I was like, okay, you need to go. I'm going to send you back home and you're going to address your issues. And she tried to hang on as long as she possibly could. But at that point, I was done. I was done and it was over.
Man, it was enough of this girl. My goodness. She put you through the ringer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's a great villain in the book.
Oh, yeah, in your story? Oh, for sure. We needed one like that.
and let me tell you something. She was losing her fucking mind the months before the book was released. Like, literally calling up my lawyers, yelling at me on Instagram before I would block her. You need to tell me everything that you wrote, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't even use Yeah, by the book, but on top of it, I don't use your fucking name and I don't even describe you. You're named after a succubus. Like, I didn't say this, my lawyers did, but it's like at a certain point, like, I can't make the message any clearer. Leave me the fuck alone. Go away. But
your lawyer was awesome, like talking with her for 15 minutes because you couldn't deal with this shit anymore. And he was texting you like, "Oh, I'm still on the phone with her. Like, she's just being." I'm like, what a champ! That's a lawyer you want to pay people.
No, he was that's the senator. He was my good buddy. He still is my good buddy. My other brother, basically. But yeah, if you've got any friends that are going to go on a phone call with your ex, who he didn't like to begin with, you know that's a homie. You know that's a bro.
How much can it get awkward when a guy like can't manage to get the pop shot right away or can't re-get boner? Like in that room there, it probably gets fucking awkward and quiet for a while there. What's the longest you ever waited for a guy to really manage it?
4-5 hours maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the deal. Like, for someone like, and this is why you always have to hire the good male talent. And this is why I used the same male talent over and over again, because I knew even if they had like a bad day, their bad day compared to like one of these lesser mopes out there is it's going to be a cakewalk. And so you just learn to avoid certain people, or you can give someone a pass and let them go again. But if it becomes a certain thing, you're like, okay, can't use you anymore. Nice guy, but can't use you anymore.
Yeah. After you showed bliss to your family, then after bang, she's not yours. Like, how was this conversation with your family?
It was nauseating because, like, here's the thing. I finally told my father all about it after she told me that she did the DNA test with my hair. And I go, look, I'm about ready to tell him. I was like, you have to swear on everything that is holy that this is actually fact. And she did, because like I say, she's a compulsive liar.
Yeah.
And then after I get the results that I took, not my daughter, and I'm like, I feel nauseous. I feel like I want to throw up everywhere, because what do you do now? Just kidding. She's not my daughter. But I wound up, like, once we were fully broken up, and this was right after, my first dog died. I went back home. Like, it was like, okay, the relationship's over. Dog that I love is taken too soon. And I went up there, and I think because of that, they went light on me. But I took them all out to dinner and sat them down, and I was like, okay, it's over. I'm no longer engaged, and she is not my daughter. And my father right away I didn't think she was your daughter. I
knew it.
Like, yeah. Because
that's why he was staring at that photo the whole time.
Yeah. Because when I told him I brought a photo, and he would just stare at it and stare at it and stare at it. Mm-hmm. And look, to his credit, on both sides of the fence, even when he heard about this, and then he heard the fact that she wasn't, he was still cool and accepting, and just I think he was just allowing me to fully comprehend that I was making terrible choices in women, and that I needed to do better. And so I did. You were all
the most of the girls that you picked out is like girls that needed to be saved.
Captain Save a Hoe is what we called it in the industry. Yeah.
How much influence does the major studios have over the performer's public persona or social media accounts?
I think in the earlier days, maybe the agents had more say about it, but I don't really think they have a say. I don't think they control like they would, say, a PR team of an actor or an actress, or, a manager or agent of an actor or an actress. I think they just kind of hopefully guide them and coach them through all of it, but they don't really impact, their persona or how they are. That's just how the performer is.
Mm-hmm. When you were talking about in your book, Jamie's the first dog that passed away, I think.
Yep.
And when you talk about her story, it really touched my heart because I lost my dog too, like 4 years ago, and she was 6.5, and she was tough shape till out of nowhere. She ain't tough shape, man. She was like breathing hard all night, and we didn't even get to 5 a.m. and I heard her last breath, and I literally picked her up, put her on my shoulders, and holding her for 2 hours while my friend was coming to literally take that dog out of my place because I couldn't deal with it.
Yep.
Why do you feel so much closer to animals than humans? You find because you seem to have an amazing a heart for humans too, but it's like if you feel like dogs can't betray you compared to humans.
Of course. I mean, I think they're angels, really. I mean, you know, I think there's only one dog I've ever met in my entire life that was a pure asshole. And it was a little dog. It was the dog of a performer named Nikki Rhodes. She was a redhead way back in the day, and her little chihuahua was just a mean little son of a bitch. But beyond that, every dog that I've been around is usually taken to me. But yeah, there's a loyalty there. And I want to say, even from my earliest images in the crib when I was an infant, was my old English sheepdog, Herbie, like always checking on me. Like those are my first images. So imprinted for sure. Mm-hmm. If you believe in certain things, perhaps I was one way back, you know, and so they see me, they're like, yeah, you're one of us. You know what I mean? But I mean, for me, it's just, you're right. They don't betray you. They're there for you. And, you know, I've been fortunate, except for with Jamie, who had the brain tumor at 6, that they've all have lived full lives. And, you know, it's, it doesn't get easier when you lose one.
No.
But when they check a lot of boxes, good life, happy, healthy, and they live like to like 12, 13, you're like, you did your job as an owner, so you can be a little more at peace with it. Mm-hmm. Even though sometimes it's sudden, or sometimes, you know it's coming, because there's a gradual decline that happens over months at times. And all you can hope for is that the suffering is limited, you know, and you make them comfortable.
I realized listening to the audiobook that the death of David Dunn really strike you. Why did that death in particular strike you that much?
Well, so David Dunn was the guy who was owning the Gillespie house. The Gillespie house was the house that we were in for 15 months before I got my licensed studio. And he was like a 39-year-old guy, and I was maybe a few years younger than him. But this is when I was in my engagement to this horrible person. And I just remember I was like having constant back pain. I was just having all of these issues. And, you know, you look at it now, it was like, of course it was from the relationship and the stress of the relationship. But when I saw this dude in his casket, and I was like, I can very well easily be this guy unless I make some changes, which is this toxicity, this relationship can't go on anymore. The ironic part, and this is what one of my buddies who edited the book, he did the first pass. He goes, okay, you made it a point that you didn't want to end up like David Dunn. Yet after your engagement, you were doing things that would almost ensure the fact that you would end up like David Dunn, which was the amount of drugs that I was doing. So I think there was some realization in him dying that I needed to make changes in the relationship, or else I would end like that. But yeah, I was still on a path that could have ended very prematurely.
Mm-hmm. Drugs and alcohol is such a strong thing.
Yep.
This story, man, when you said it there, oh man, I was crying because I lived this shit for once in particular, because I did shrooms with a lot of people in my life, and I did shrooms alone often. And there's some fuck friends I had for a while, and when they asked me, oh, we should do shrooms, in my head, I was like, no, we're not going to ruin this there, because I had this one experience that was exactly like yours. The girl was beautiful to death, and she was like, oh, let's do shrooms. And when we started doing shrooms, my goodness, her face transformed into like fucking, because when you're in the world, everything looks different, and her face was like fucking like a clown. Her hair was all weird, and I was like, oh my god, like I don't even know how I managed to perform, and it really scrapped the friendship or relationship you were starting with this person. Can you talk a bit about it?
Yeah, well, this was one of the girls that was staring at me in my office when I was engaged. That was making it very apparent that she was interested. And so there was a lot of buildup to it. Now, this is like the difference between me after I got out of my engagement versus me after I became single after being in a relationship with the girl after my fiance, Jackie. And, you know, when I was out of the relationship and you're being accused all the time of cheating, and now the girl's there, and you're like, you're basically so trigger happy and, you know, ready to go. And I just wish, you know, there's sometimes you wish you get a mulligan, a do-over, because you're like, what was I thinking?
I fucked up.
Like that was stupid. But that's the journey of life, isn't it? Where you make mistakes, you do dumb shit, and hopefully you learn from them. So after I got out of the last relationship with Jackie, and I was going to be wading in the porn waters again, it was going to be, okay, we're going to be much wiser this time. And we're not going to do any dumb shit like take mushrooms before you're about to have sex with someone who you've both been mutually interested in. Because after that, she was like, what the fuck? That was such a letdown.
Because I did it with a lot of dudes in my life doing shrooms, but it never deformed one of my friends this much. But girls, why they put makeup is to make up who the fuck they are. Yep. So when you're on shrooms and in that world, well, all the makeup really, it's the makeup is something and the human is the other. And then when you put both together on shrooms, it's fucking crazy. You're like, what the hell did you do to your face?
Yep. I should have just opened a bottle of wine. That would have been
absolutely. It was the quick way to do it. It was already down for.
yeah. That was just dumb. But yeah, that's the thing. When I talk about leaning into the bizarre and awkward, those are the moments that I find are the most funny. Because, you know, listen, if I talk about all the fun ones and the successful ones, then I'm basically writing about porn. You know. Exactly. No, we like the train wrecks. Those are more entertaining. So I stuck with that.
People appreciate the roller coaster in life. Yeah. What are major misconceptions that the public has about the adult industry, that particular about like more about the people working in it? What are the misconceptions that people have about performers?
I think dudes think that the female performers are like that on screen, that they're that approachable in real life, that they will just, you know, oh, you're interested, let's fuck. You know what I mean? That would be the biggest misconception. I think the other one would be that the job is easy, that it's a fun day, that it's quick. Because most people, after they've been through a full porn shoot, will say, you know, that was kind of fucking boring. Because it is, and it takes a while. You don't really, to me, it was always the sex was the easy part. Always, especially if you had two good performers. You know, that was always maybe 35, 40 minutes tops if everything's firing on all cylinders. But before that, makeup, pretty girls, intro stills, intro video, you know, all of the acting, then the sex stills. Then finally, we're getting to the part that everyone wants to see. Mm-hmm. So it's not a cakewalk. People think, oh, how hard can it be to shoot porn? Sometimes vary depending on what the variables are.
And I'm sure the pressure of like competing and keeping your job always, so you need to stay relevant and stay important in the industry. Yep. Why are the AVNs? Is that how it's called? Like the awards of why is those parties or events so out of control?
Because I think it draws a lot of people who are just wanting to be around the whole element of porn. I think that's really what it comes down to. The funny thing is that the book, you know, and I'll hold it up here real quick so everyone knows, but this is AVN nominated. Okay. Now you've read it. Okay. You hear all of the shit that I talk about the industry. You hear how much I goof on AVN and the awards and everything else. Yet here they are nominating me for mainstream venture of the year, which to me, look, I look at it like this. Okay, it's hilarious because of the contents of the book, but in some ways it's a little bit of an achievement because I'm doing this outside of the porn monopoly. I'm doing this. This was something I did on my own. So in a very minor way, I guess I'm flattered that it's something that I achieved outside of their shadow. But overall, I just think all of it is so like self-congratulatory and like so self-jerking, you know, like I understood the absurdity of it. So I leaned into that. I wish they all did, but instead they all take it so seriously and it's so important, and it really isn't. It's not at all.
People like it, like you said, it's not an industry. You should take yourself seriously in a way there. I was so pissed when I realized that a lot of your chapters, you end it with a sex scene that we hear. I'm telling you, I'm listening to this shit with a speaker in my room, okay? Everything's chill. And my neighbor is 74 years old, okay? And I'm in my bed, so her bed is across mine on the other side. And then you start hearing so, put it deep in my mouth. I'm like, oh shit, like so loud there. I was like, man, every time. So I had to watch out. So when the chapter was ending, I knew that you were gonna surprise me with something else every fucking time. Bro,
Yeah.
Every time I was shocked by what I was hearing.
Well, the truth is that like sometimes it was very deliberate on the topic that I was talking about and the soundbite. But here's the thing, and I don't know if you put this together listening to the audiobook, but the reality is that when I was pulling audio clips for the things that I was talking about from, you know, the prologue, I pull actual audio from there. From that scene with Angelina Valentine that was never released, I pull audio. Well, you know, the tour de force is the end, the epilogue, and I started pulling clips, and the shit that I was hearing in these clips, because that live show was the most ridiculous of all things. My goal was to eventually weave these in throughout the chapters and lead up to it. So people who are listening, they're like, oh, that's what that was. So probably on subsequent listens, people will get really what I was doing there.
Oh my god, I didn't expect that at all, and the whole time I'm like, oh fuck, I hope my neighbor doesn't think that I'm just watching porn all night in my bed.
Yeah,
it was
hilarious.
so loud. Oh man, it made me laugh so much.
Yep.
The adult industry often receives criticism for the way they portray women. Did you notice any like issues within the company, or were there efforts to address these problems of how do you feel?
Well, okay, so what are you really talking about? You know, because you could talk about feminists saying that, you know, porn and facials are ways of degrading women.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe like the reality is that I know women who actually enjoy facials and enjoy anal. So that whole claim that it's like anti-women and aggressive towards women, I can debunk that relatively quickly.
For sure.
But I think what was happening was what we were talking about earlier, when you're dealing with performers who just didn't know how to speak up during a scene. That's what I think they were starting to address more and more. And I guess they're still doing it, you know, on the studio porn sets. A lot of times they've got, you know, I want to call them intimacy coordinators, but they basically are. It's the same thing that would be on a Hollywood set these days when it comes to sex. And that's where it is right now. I was actually on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the performer said to me, it's like, she's like, it really sucks now because right when you're getting in the groove and you're really enjoying yourself and you're like feeling it. And that was the point I always looked for when I was shooting, like the sweet spot, like getting away out of the awkward and the awkward positions and finding your groove.
Yeah.
Well, apparently now when you find your groove, that's when they cut. Are you okay? Are you doing okay? And the girl's like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, can you not interrupt us? But that's what porn is right now, apparently, on the studio level. Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever feel responsibility to influence the ethics side of this industry, like performer safety or representation?
Of course. Like, that was my goal. Like, I wanted to create a safe spot for performers, that they knew they were going to come in, that there weren't going to be people being scummy and sleazy and trying to fuck them. That wasn't their male talent. That was my goal, because the way I saw it was that if someone left happy and wanted to come back, that is job longevity. Yep. It really was. So yeah, it's the porn industry, but you can class it up. You can run it like a business. And it was very natural for me to do it. And to me, it was the only way to do it.
And I saw in different porns I watched in my life that what you said in the book, that you didn't want to be a company like this. Like, they do the scene, and after the scene, the girl goes to the shower to clean and leave the fucking place. And she's even surprised that they go in the bathroom with the camera still rolling, and the actor gets back in it, and you see in her face there that she's not comfortable, and she's shocked, and she's like obligated to do another scene out of nowhere. And I was like, man, that each time I see that in real porns, I'm like, that is so fucked up. And when you mentioned that that you weren't wanted to do that, man, that's so real, because it's like they want to take advantage. Like the girl got paid, she got laid, everything is done there. So for them to like, it like makes the girl feel obligated to re-sleep with them or something like that.
Right. And you know, the times that they wanted us to do that stuff was like during the live shows, which was like, after the show's over, let's follow him into the showers.
Okay,
but it was all talked about.
Yeah, but she knows it.
Right. And I would say to him, I was like, if you want to have sex, have sex. If you don't, if you're done, if you're fucked out, then don't worry about it. Just excuse yourself. Like, that's the way I did it. But yeah, there's times when the cameras aren't rolling, with a male talent, we called them shower sharks, where they would go in and try to fuck again. And that was one of the lessons I gave at the end. It was like, if you want to be a male performer, do not be a shower shark, because it's going to blow your entire reputation.
And you had a guy that each time he went to go get him, he was like, the girl's like, oh yeah, you have weed? He's like, I'll give you a blowjob, I'll get you weed. Or, man, it's like,
yeah,
you can't have in your team little dogs, like guys that don't have pussy. You need guys that have game to be able to deal with these beautiful women without jumping on them all the time.
Yeah, that was my worst hire ever. Fucktard is what he's known as in the book. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was Mo too, that you had a couple of problems like that with him, and he even married one of them. And you all were like, no, this is not a good idea. My goodness.
It wasn't. It lasted, I think, 6 weeks. He was one of the first ones that left on bad terms, and then called OSHA on me. And then Fucktard left on bad terms because, you know, I was hearing the same stories over and over. Yeah. And where there's smoke, there's fire. So I let him go, and he called OSHA on me as well. So I had visits from OSHA because of former employees who left badly that wanted to exact some retribution upon me.
How do performers or directors protect themselves from long-term psychological toll of this work, or it's not really talked about yet to the highest degree?
So all I could do is just give advice to people. You know, for me, when things were getting heavy, I would take a break and I would go to music festivals, and I would do like a lot of hallucinogens. I would do Molly, probably, you know, Coke as well. I mean, there's times where I had about 6 different things swirling around in my system. But the truth is,
of Wall Street.
Right. But the truth is, when I was away from porn and I was at music, that's when, you know, the needle started going back into the positive, where I would come back from a music festival. All right, I'm back. Let's go shoot some good fucking porn, you know? And I would be like happy. And then the cycle would repeat itself. You get depleted and you get darker and darker. And you're like, all right, I need a break. I need to go see some live music. My advice is, look, find something to get away to, and find people outside of the industry that are friends, that are your true friends. Because you don't really find a lot of like true like friends in the industry. You don't.
Or in life too, I find.
Yeah. So I just tell people, I was like, find your people, and use them for support when you need them.
Can you break down a bit the money side of the industry? Who really gets rich in here, and who barely scrapes by?
So nowadays, the crews are the ones that are barely scraping by. The top level talents, the contracts, they're the ones who are making the money. See, the way I look at it like this is, if a girl spent, say, 2 to 3 years in the industry and built up a brand, and we're talking about, years ago. We're talking maybe 2015 onward, around that time frame, when you're working in studio porn and you're becoming a known name in the industry. Around that time is when the performer platform started to emerge. So that's when they can start making the OnlyFans money. So those who are fortunate to be around that point and they have a good following, they're doing okay. Especially nowadays. But the companies, less so, because especially Pornhub, because of all the problems that they faced over the years with the content purge and now the age verification. The money is not there for crews anymore at all. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't understand why anyone would want to do this job for those companies, because the money doesn't justify the bullshit anymore.
And now you can do it all by yourself. Don't need to sweat your own place with your fucking cell phone. So it's way less stress.
It is less stressful, but again, you are building a brand and you need to build it from the ground up, and it becomes a full-time job. So if you're a producer / talent, you could be okay.
I saw that you were the one that did the Ghostbusters and the Star Wars parody. Yeah. What's crazy about that? I seen those way before, before knowing that you were coming on the podcast. And when I saw that, because I went to look online, all the scenes you did, like a list of them. So if there's some that trigger me that I know, and I saw those too. Are you the one that really creates the whole idea, or you just wait from the top, getting told, oh, this or that?
So what would happen is that they would send their producers lists of scenes and who they want and who they want to pair it with, which a lot of times, they would want all these things and they wouldn't get it, because sometimes a certain female might not work with a certain male and vice versa. So you try to give them what they want, and then the scripts come. And then I had to just break down the scripts, decipher them, send my crew out to either get wardrobe, props, whatever. We're going to build this set. And it was really just following, these are the marching orders. Now execute the plan. And that was really it.
What object for you that you have at your place that means the most to you? Is it the helmet by the Philly with all signed?
Well, okay. So yeah, I love the fact that after 2018 after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, a gift shows up. I'm like, what is this? And it's a signed helmet, Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl 52, 30 signatures on it. And it was from them saying, to Vic, friend, they called me a friend, or lifelong friend or something, and our frontline commander. Like, these are their words. And I'm like, and our relationship over the years was like, it was ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and at that point in time, I felt that, okay, we're finally on the same page again. We're finally on the same page again. We finally have that mutual respect. But it didn't last long. It didn't. No. It was very temporary. Yeah, I mean, because once COVID hit and the business changed, well, any of that warm, fuzzy feelings went completely out the window.
Yeah, because it became cutthroat right away between everybody.
Yeah.
Were there any performers or directors who were considered untouchable within the industry, and why were those people untouchable?
We have a joke that Kieran Lee must have pictures of the owners doing some shit, or he's got some hard evidence, because it was the only thing that would make sense for him being just such a fucking pain in the ass and still constantly having his job. We always would say Kieran has pictures. He has to have pictures. So he was the only one I could really see it. But I mean, now from what I hear, they kiss the performers' asses so much because they need them. They need their traffic. Crews, they still treat like shit, from what I gather, from what they tell me. But they really, sometimes some sets don't even have money for food anymore to feed people. That's how tight it's gotten.
OnlyFans, did it destroy these paid sites, or they went parallel together and grew?
I think that was part of it. Before the companies were making the money, the girls would get paid a one-time fee for the scene. Now they've got their OnlyFans money, so it did shift a little bit. The pendulum did shift. But I think really what changed everything was all of the allegations and all the claims of all the abuse and all the videos that were on Pornhub unchecked, and the big purge that happened at the end of 2020. All of that really crippled them in a big way, to the point where, I was trying to figure out where it all went wrong in 2020, where, okay, how does a relationship that has been going on 16 years at this point, finally, like, I'm discarded like a fucking baby wipe in a porn scene. You know what I mean? Like, that's really how I felt. Yeah. And what I was realizing was there was something bigger going on. And the book that I sometimes refer to, this one, the Takedown book, I know this author. I've talked with her. She was the one who pretty much brought it to national attention, the shit that Pornhub was up to. And now they're dealing with even more issues with the age verification. So in some states now, you can't even access Pornhub anymore. So I think that really is what is crippling most of the pay sites now.
If the adult entertainment industry suddenly would cease to exist, they're out of nowhere, what do you think would fill that void for people?
AI porn.
No, I'm not coming faster than we think.
So yes, because look at it. There's two types of people: the organics and the ones that are okay with AI. And I actually did a podcast with a guy who he had an expert on who was in the AI realm. And when a user who was engaging with someone AI that didn't know about it, their response was very negative. But a user who knew that they were talking to AI was okay with it. So let's think about that movie Blade Runner 2047 or whatever it was, where Ryan Gosling has the digital girlfriend, Ana de Armas. Okay, we're not very far off from that. We're not. And I look at this where when Pornhub became a distressed asset, and when they sold to the fourth ownership in early 2023, I was wondering. I was like, why on earth would someone buy this beleaguered brand, even for pennies on the dollar? And I was talking with my brother, who is in data harvesting. First answer was for the data. And I go, huh? And he's like, yeah. He's like, imagine, what a certain user wants, what their type is, what their search is of. Why don't you create a digital girlfriend for them? And then you start thinking the possibilities are potentially endless on this. And you have one big thing. You don't have to deal with pain in the ass porn stars anymore. You don't have to worry about paying them anymore. You don't have to worry about paying directors anymore. And you don't have to worry about that blurred line of retracted consent after a scene is done.
Yeah.
If I'm a business owner, I'm like, let's go into the AI mold, because fuck people, because they suck,
Yeah, and they're not trustworthy. They don't show up on time. They're in different moods. It's like you had to deal with that on a daily, creating these scenes all the time.
Yeah. AI has no ego. Really.
No, for sure. Was there ever an unwritten rule in the industry, like a wide practice, you completely disagree with?
I think just really towards the end, when the company was validating a performer's, I guess, headspace of, powering through and not being able to articulate the words cut. To me, I thought it was very dangerous. I thought, you know what? Instead of making excuses why a performer can't speak up, how about you don't shoot them? How about
you explain to them how to say it?
Or either of those. But I look at it like this, like, not everyone is cut out for it. They're not. But, porn always welcomes the broken. So they don't care. They don't. And it's up to the producer on the front line to make sense of it all. And even if they try to do everything right, which is what I always try to do, it's not foolproof at all.
And like in your book, you say that, I think you say this, I find it stupid that a girl that's 18, like on the day of, she can go and accept 3 BBC that day and all chill, and she signs the papers and all good, but she can't drink. You're not
Right.
allowed drinking for another 3 years because you're in the States. It's like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Dude, you can't buy cigarettes at 18. You can't
That's-
buy booze at 18. You can go get killed in a war at 18. But you can have sex on camera when you immediately turn 18 years old. That's where I believe, maybe raise it to 21. If you're going to work for the studios, like I think if someone's working on their own platform, I think it's actually not a bad idea. Try it out. The OnlyFans. See if the business is for you, and if it is, okay, level up when you're 21 and start shooting company porn. Because maybe if you made it that far and you think it's for you, maybe you have a way to make a career in this.
But that's because you're a nice guy. But most directors or producers, they're going to be like, if she leaves here, I'm probably not going to get that money from this girl. So let's do her right away.
Yeah.
Because there's some that literally are sharks for those 18, 19-year-old girls.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever meet anybody that does those public pickups? And are those really 100% real, or it's always like an actor to the highest degree?
Well, okay, with what I was doing, it was always staged, always, because you need to have the release forms. It's not going to be organic. And in the early parts of my career, in Vegas and in Florida, I was shooting in shopping malls and I was doing the whole staged pickup thing, but it was all fake. But now with the OnlyFans and them doing all of these stunts, who knows, man? Who knows?
Do you have tricks personally to not come fast?
Yeah. Complicated math problems, or thinking that your favorite team is getting the shit beaten out of them by your division rival. You think about that stuff, you're not going to come at all.
Exactly. I tell most guys it's because I think the era of most guys is the girl's on top of him, fucking riding him, and he's in his head being like, oh my God, she's so hot. Oh my God, never thought a girl like this would ride me. Well, what you're doing, you're amplifying the heat of the moment. You're exciting your own self, and what's gonna happen? You're gonna fucking come. And I learned that putting your mind to something else, that helps. So what I do is I concentrate on the girl instead. Look at her the whole time. Okay, she likes this. This movement right here. And by doing that, you're so concentrated on every movement she's doing that you have problems coming then. So it literally fixes that math problem. It's quite good because a lot of guys are premature and beautiful girls, and they're like, I'm never gonna get her again. Yeah, you fucked up, bro.
Yeah. Complicated math problems, because it doesn't matter what the answer is. As long as you're working it out in the columns and the rows in your head, you are not going to come. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly. It's so mental, the job of a man there. That's why it's so hard to stay hard during all this pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You said you intentionally nuked the bridge so you couldn't go back. What led you to that decision, and what's life been since stepping away from all the lights and the glamour and the squirts?
Why did I nuke the bridge? Well, so the company that I work for obviously is the porn monopoly. They own most of the things in the business. Therefore, they can exert a lot of influence. And when things between me and the company ended poorly, well, I didn't really have many options within it. Now, the porn industry has the memory of a goldfish. If I really wanted to come back and work for another company, I probably could, but I would definitely be making less money. But for me, it was like, you know what? If you can't do anything else with your life, then that's kind of a shame. So again, why nuke the bridge? Well, so you can't go back at all. And I think with a lot of things that I reveal in the book, I think a lot of the industry is not happy with me, but I don't give a fuck at all. And some people are like, dude, you're a fucking legend for what you did. But I can't say it publicly because I don't want the porn monopoly to come down on me and affect my work. I mean, that's really it. So what is it like now? I mean, it's fucking amazing, dude. It's amazing. Like I think about what it would be like going back to work and all the insanity. And I just get stressed. I'm like, And I think, how on earth did I do this for so long and so well? And I mean, obviously the money was a big motivator, and the drugs helped too.
Yeah.
And I was good at the job, but now I look back and I was like, I don't know how I sustained it for so long. I really don't. It's quite a miracle that I'm still here.
I saw that you did a documentary about your life, or a movie, or you started it.
So what had happened
Tell me about this, because I searched online and I couldn't find it. I'm like, what the fuck? We have a trailer. He's talking about it. I'm like, it exists, I think.
Yeah. So it's on my website. If you go to viclagina.com, you can see the trailer. So this is what happened. So, you know, obviously over the course of my career, I had 2 studios and I shot a lot of porn and movies that all ended the same way with a pop shot, facial, whatever.
3,792 of them.
Exactly. And my feeling was, you know, from coming from a movie loving background and a production background, I thought to myself, you know, if you had access to all of these resources and you never shot one thing creative, shame on you, dude. So what happened was, when I realized that it was over, you know, even when I tried to, after Brazzers, morph more onto the OnlyFans, shooting for girls and OnlyFans and linking up with an OnlyFans management company, I realized that the girls were just not motivated enough to go to a studio to shoot, that they
don't need those people anymore.
Right. But I mean, but even to want to have to put that much more back into the brand, the ambition was not there. So once I realized, okay, it's over. The next move was, okay, let's sell the building, because I didn't let anyone know that I bought that building.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, because if the only way you're going to keep a secret in porn is if you tell no one.
Exactly.
And the truth is, the third ownership of MindGeek, they were such cocksuckers that they would only want, they wouldn't want anyone to have any leverage over them in any way, shape, or form. So my feeling was, okay, they're asking me to move studios into a smaller one. So I do, but somehow I pulled it off where I could buy this studio, and I'm going to have these motherfuckers that I really don't like anymore pay my mortgage for, you know, however long we can make this go. So that was my always, this is what's going to happen once it's all over. So once I decided that, okay, we're going to sell, I found a tenant to take over the building. But before I did, I was like, I need to shoot one thing for me. So I wrote a 70-page script about 6 days of a pornographer, and I shot it over 6 days in the studio, and it was going to be like its own movie. Yeah. It really was. And I was ready to do all this stuff, and I gave it to an editor. I didn't direct it. I starred in it. I produced it. I wasn't the main character, a guy named James Duval, who was Frank.
How could you lose the main character when you are it?
well, the whole thing was because I wanted to play someone else, and getting a Hollywood actor to play me, I thought was kind of cool. And the guy who was Frank the Rabbit in Donnie Darko, he was interested in playing me. So we did it over 6 days, and once it was all done and I started clearing out the studio and the tenant took over, I gave it to an editor, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting for him to give me a cut. And I was being told it was coming soon. And I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs. So while I was waiting, I decided, okay, let's finish the book and let's make it really good. And when I finally saw a cut, 18 months later, I was very much underwhelmed. Like, it was
18 months later.
18 months later. I mean, I told the dude, I was like, you don't have a time limit. But I did tell him at a certain point, I go, look, man, we're getting to the point where the book is now the focus. All right. And if I don't see something soon, then this becomes irrelevant completely.
Yeah.
So what I wound up doing was, instead of turning it into a movie, I decided just to make a trailer for the book and mine all of the gold, because we got some really good stuff in it.
For sure.
So that's what the trailer is that you find on viclagina.com, which is a trailer for the book, which gives people a visual of what this could be in a movie form or a TV show. That was really...
Do you think you're going to release it one day?
I don't know. I mean,
Because you could send it to another editor and maybe he can create something great out of it.
maybe if I could do a crowd fund where people want to see it. But the truth is, after I was looking at it, it seemed to be more of something that if I were to release it in short form, like with attention spans nowadays,
it's crazy.
Let's make like 12 minutes and let's do like 5 or 6 installments. Let's do that. And that's where I thought we were going to go with this one editor. But he just decided, he's like, no, I just decided to put this together and let me know your notes. And this was like, the book is about ready to be released. And I'm like, all right, I'm done with you. And so nothing ever came of it. But the trailer for the book, I'm very proud of it.
I love it.
Yeah,
I wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in your career that you felt you were like, damn, we're doing something really revolutionary in this industry? We're really changing the game.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that literally right before I moved to Vegas. Like there was something special in the air. I couldn't explain it, but I was being drawn to Vegas for some reason because I just had a feeling this was going to go very well. And if I had played my cards a little bit better, I would have angled for a piece of Brazzers with the first ownership, because I believe they would have given it to me if I had taken less money up front as a producer. Instead of getting a scene rate, give me less and give me a piece. Because if I had done that when they sold for $140 fucking million, well, you know, I would have been gone a long time ago.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you could go back and relive only one day in the industry, what day would it be and why?
The day that I met my ex-fiance and never would have gotten involved with her in the first place.
Wow.
Yep. If I could like have the older self be like, okay, dude, yeah, okay, hot, fine, whatever, but save yourself 3 years of fucking hassle. Just go beat off in the sink right now. That's what I would have told my younger self, you know?
Are there any major cover-ups and scandals within the industry that the public doesn't know about?
Cover-ups? No, I don't really think so. I think if there was any cover-ups or anything going on, it was before the age of social media. You know, I think what happened was, if there was ever any kind of instances on set where nowadays would get blasted all of social media, I guess that would be discouraged, was discouraged back then. You know, don't talk about it because it's going to affect your work. If there's anything, it would have been that. But overall, no, I mean, if there was, it was well before my time.
What's the most extreme measures a production company took to keep a shoot or a performer scandal free?
I don't know.
Because what I saw in your book, I heard in your book, you realize that they're ready to blackball people quite fast. There, Marcus, one of your best actors, a male. Right. It's like there's this girl that didn't like how it went, but she didn't say shit the whole time, and then all the other companies like blackball him. So they literally choked the guy. So you're choking to death if you're not signing him again. That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So sure. I think there was, claims of abuse of performers where, Marcus Dupree was front and center in all of this, but I will still say to this day, he was the strongest and best performer I ever shot. And I think, at this point in time, I wouldn't allow an abuser on my set.
Exactly.
I think what would happen is he was Russian. Have you ever dealt with Russians before?
No.
Okay. They're very straightforward, very honest, and very boom. And I'm okay with that because I'm the same way. So me and him vibed, and I trusted him implicitly with shoots. Like, okay, you know a better position. You're going to give me high energy all the time, so I'm going to trust you with it. And I knew early on that it was better for me to pair him with girls who loved working with him and liked his style. What wound up happening was the company would try to shoehorn a girl in with him, and that's usually when things went wrong. Because they felt like, he was too rough or too aggressive, but they're not the ones speaking up about it. you know.
Is there ideas that you've been thrown by the upper people that were directing everything from the top that you were like, no, we ain't fucking doing that?
Yeah, I think there was like concepts sometimes where I'm like, this is a liability. Someone can get hurt. Or if there was a particular performer that I thought was mentally unstable, I think this is a bad idea. I'm not going to do it. There was a website. So this is when, and this is why I believe that the owners, the third owners, knew exactly what they were doing with Pornhub, was they were understanding that some of the things being searched on Pornhub were really dark. Okay. And around 2009, there was a request. This is when I moved into my first studio, where they wanted to have, I still have the document. It's probably printed out right over there. It was called a website they were going to call Shame on Her, which is basically a girl that's either like too inebriated, and it's all supposed to be a performance, and guys take advantage of her. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this because this is rape.
This is consensual, non-consensual.
Like you're doing everything that you're supposed to, getting IDs, getting releases. It's a performance, but I didn't like where it was going, and most of the producers rejected it. Now, eventually, what would happen? It devolved into a scene called Porn Star Punishment, which was it was active for a couple of years. But it started to get some bad attention and bad press, so they cut it. And you know, this is what they were going for at a certain point in time. Now, the Porn Star Punishment, I was a little more at ease with, because when you are dealing with certain performers who legitimately say they have rape fetishes and they like rough sex, okay, I guess you can justify it to a certain extent, and you're doing what they're doing at Kink, right? You're doing these long, extensive interviews about how much they love it in their personal life, and exit interviews as well. But again, you're pushing it a little bit, and I think that was their goal up top to push the limit, right?
See where till where they could go,
right. But I mean, after a while, like thankfully, they had to put that site to rest, and but I still have all the raw footage of all that stuff. I do.
Wow. Because you said at the beginning of the audio, how many teras of shit do you have?
100 terabytes of raw footage.
That is so much footage, people.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And I mean, and most of it was like high definition. It wasn't 4K, which was four times in size. You know.
Yeah.
So
from all the years in this business, who stood out as the most fascinating performer or personality, and why?
I really like Jordan Nash. You know, he's no longer with us. He died of a brain tumor in 2020. But I mean, you know, between him, Charles Dara, they were guys that they knew their job. They were good at their job. They knew their assignment to come in, fuck the hole, figure it out, and, you know, and be a professional. So I talk about Jordan, obviously, because he's dead. And I started with him. We both started at the same time in Florida, and we both kind of rose up together. Okay. But he was something else. I mean, when we did the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas parody, I mean, he was Raoul Duke. He was playing Hunter S. Thompson, and the dude literally shaved this part of his head to like really be legit. And I'm like, you are the man.
You're dedicated. I like you.
Yeah, exactly.
For somebody like you that's been deeply embedded in this industry, what advice would you have to performers or directors just starting out? Like you said a bit at beginning that like performers need to really know what the fuck they're getting into, but for somebody that really wants to direct it or be a cameraman in this industry,
well, I would tell them I don't think there's a lot of money in it anymore. If they really want to do this, that they should consider being the producer / performer, assuming they're okay being a performer. But if they just want to be crew, I'll be like, man, you're not going to make a lot of money, and it's going to be hard.
Do most people in crews of porn, like back then, like wanted to be more in film and ended up in porn?
Yeah, Yeah, I think everyone, they took a wrong turn somewhere, like I did, and they ended up here. You know.
What's something that you learned in the working in the adult entertainment industry that you unexpectedly helped you in your everyday life? Like something you learned in that porn industry.
I mean, just running a business that's above board. You know, being compliant with state and local ordinances, all of that stuff. It was really a crash course in running a legit business. So yeah, I did it. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to go back to it because the work ethic of the younger generation just isn't there anymore.
No, their heart is fucking and shit.
yeah. I mean, and here's the thing too. Like I was a hyper focused beast when it came to my job, and I wouldn't expect anyone to be on that level as I would. But I would say, you know what? Just meet me in the middle. Can you just meet me in the middle, and I will get you to the finish line? And when they could, it was great, but a lot of them couldn't.
I saw that there's 2 scenes in particular that you are very proud of. The gang that makes a porno and Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Well, it's the same one, So,
okay.
So the people.
Why are you so proud of this one?
Well, because I'm a fan of the show and because I'm from Philadelphia. But this was a digital playground feature, and features in porn sucked to shoot. Okay, because usually the concepts were so bad, they were so poorly written. Like no one's watching porn for the fucking story and the acting, even though the performers really enjoyed doing that part. They did. Yeah. But a feature is a house of cards where you're trying to shoot something over 3 or 4 days, and porn stars sometimes have to drop out for a variety of reasons, and you're trying to keep this cohesive story together, right? With Always Sunny in Philadelphia, everyone wanted to be there. They were all happy to be there. And every day was so smooth. And, we turned our whole soundstage into Patty's Pub, and it was just a very fun 4 or 5 days of shooting this feature that went very well. And so I was proud of it. I thought it was the best thing I did.
I watched it. I took the time to go check it out. And it's really well made. I got 5 more if that's okay for you.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. How did you deal with criticism or public perception of your work? Did you ever feel judged or for being in the industry or what you were creating?
I didn't really care what people thought about my work. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought there was a certain point in time where, there was a lot of competition between directors within Brazzers. And because I was there from the very beginning and I helped build this thing, there was a lot of ego involved. And so I was a little overly protective about that for some reason that I thought was important at that point in time. But there was a certain point, I think it was probably after Jamie died, where, I was like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks anymore. I just don't. If I'm talking to someone and they ask me what I do and I tell them and they are disgusted, that's their problem. But most people were like, wow, I've got so many questions like you do.
As a frequent guest on major shows, what's the most common question or assumption people bring up about your time in the adult industry?
That I probably have a very fucked up sex life, that I need to do some real extreme shit in order to get turned on, which is completely not true at all. It didn't really affect my sex life. I try to think about it. No, it didn't affect my sex life because you like what you like. And I didn't have to, push it really hard in order to get turned on. I never did. So that is always the assumption.
What's the creative idea for a scene or production that you wanted but never got the chance to do?
I wanted to do like a Harold and Kumar
nice
make a porno kind of thing.
That could have been funny.
It could have been funny, but the problem was, twofold. Number one, finding an Indian porn star and finding a good Asian porn star, that was troublesome. But the whole thing is, they're potheads and you can't do drugs in porn. So it was an idea that I was never able to execute.
But you can't use like what they use in movies for props for
No, because
Wow.
because it was compliant. Like if I told
Isn't that
you
crazy?
if I told you some of the things that we weren't allowed to do for compliance reasons, you'd be like, "What the fuck?" Now I think they lightened the rules over time. But if a girl was like under hypnosis, that's not legal because she's not in the frame of mind that she should be. There was a whole laundry list that I do get to in the book that I was like, I don't even know what we're doing anymore, but okay, I'll work through this.
How do some porn sites they can write as a title father banging his daughter, and other sites can't even say that, so that they're like, not father bangs not stepdaughter, and like why do sites have regulation and some like it's like fucking a free-for-all of crazy shit, like you're in the dark web, but you're just on a site that's not Pornhub?
So before I moved out to LA or Vegas, there was a site that I was shooting for called Moms Teaching Teens.
Yeah.
And it was implied mother-daughter, but the owner of that site was, you can't do that because incest is illegal. So you just go with the moniker Moms Teaching Teens. I think the bigger the brand and the bigger the company, the more they had to be cognizant of the rules, where you have to establish it's stepfather, stepdaughter. And here was the interesting part. We couldn't, you had to establish in the storyline that this was something that was recent. Like it was a recent marriage and a recent stepdaughter. Like it couldn't be like, I've watched you grow up all throughout these years. You couldn't do that. So there were rules. There were definite rules.
See, I never thought about that, but yeah, that is so true. I never saw a scene like that they said that they know each other for years. It's always
Right.
like, oh, a new stepdaughter. Yeah, that's so true. I never realized that. Wow.
Yeah. That was the reason. Absolute reason.
If someone wanted to create a fictional series based on your life, what would be the title?
Filthy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
stick with it to the end for sure.
Filthy. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's next for you? And do you see yourself exploring other creative industries, or do you plan to continue speaking out about your experiences in the porn world?
I'm definitely going to continue speaking. The podcast circuit is a fun one. I love the fact that I could just do this from the comfort of my house as well. Although I do like sitting in with people at times. But what comes next? Well, I'm going to continue promoting this book. What I learned at a book convention in Vegas last month was I need to make more product. And it seems to me that people want to know about those stories in the trenches. The things when a day went sideways. So the project for 2025 is to create a bunch of essays about specific ones, because there's still gold in those hills.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think I'll continue doing that. But right now, I mean, there's a couple of producers out there kicking the tires on the book and seeing what can it be. And to be honest with you, if I got back into production, if this thing was becoming like a real thing about a real story in the porn industry, I would love that, because every execution of it just doesn't ring true to me. It rings a little hollow and conjured up. But here's a real story about a dude who experienced all these things, but had a front row seat to the company that changed the entire industry, their rise, and you can argue their fall as well. And I think that's compelling. So hopefully, I'll just keep putting the good vibes out there that maybe one day this will come to fruition.
I'm sure it will. Looking back at your career, do you think the adult entertainment industry is better or worse now than when you started? And how do you feel about that?
It's better from the perspectives of the performers, because I think there's more people looking out for them now because of all the hot water of the blurred lines of consent that have happened.
And now you got the porn union.
Well, they have the porn union, but it doesn't really have any teeth.
Okay.
Doesn't have any teeth to it.
It's not like the work union and no.
No, you can't, because these people are not employees of a company. They are independent contractors. So there's no teeth there. But from the perspective of the companies not making all the money anymore, and it's more shifted to performers, I like that more, because the performers are the ones on the front line. They are the ones who are risking their health by having unprotected sex on camera, despite how much testing is going on.
Yeah.
But from what the company I work for did, I mean, they did make it for the worse as well for a long period of time. Is that pendulum shifting back to where the companies are making less and performers are making more? Sure, until we go back into what I mentioned earlier, AI. Mm-hmm. Once that happens, I think that's going to be when the pendulum goes the other way.
Yeah, because AI is big now, and hentai as well. Like, those sites are blowing up. Like, Lara Croft is one of the most searched persons in the porn industry, and she's not real.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's fucking crazy where we're going.
Yeah.
So, where can everybody find your work and your social medias and your book?
So if you go, I'm only on X and I'm only on Instagram. So at Vic Lagina, but go to viclagina.com. Watch the trailer, at least for the porn star boobies that you see in it. But for there, you can figure out which way you want to go. Do you want to read the print copy? Because the truth is, putting together a book like this, it's not as easy as just writing it. Mm-hmm. You've got the cover, you've got the inside design. I mean, I learned all of this stuff, and I had to do it in a way where I wanted to be sure that if I'm putting this out myself, that it doesn't look self-published. So I put a lot of resources into it because I was able to, because I, saved my money. So if you like print books, I recommend it. It's on Amazon. If you like Kindle, it's on Amazon as well. You seem to really enjoy the audiobook.
Absolutely.
I tell people, if you want to have a more fun, interactive way to go, do the audiobook. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You seem to really enjoy it, and I appreciate you taking the time to go through it. But go to Vic Lagina. It'll direct you all over the place to where to get it.
Perfect. Man, for sure I was going to take the time. You were taking the time to come on my podcast. I don't have 1 million subscribers like Joe Rogan. And for sure you were huge. So I'm like, it's my pleasure, honestly, to take that time. And it took like 4 or 5 hours to write those questions. And me, it's that giving back for you to come on there. That's why I appreciate it so much. So thanks for coming on the podcast. And I'll see you guys next week.